Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
I gave her my heart, and she gave me a podcast.
Yeah!
David is holding his arms above his head as if
a boombox is in them.
And what's coming out of that boombox? A new mini-series. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Griffin Newman.
I'm David Sims.
This is a podcast called Blank Check with Griffin and David, a.k.a. The Two Friends. That's not part of the title.
No.
That's
it's
just
not.
a little hint for the listeners, because you're wondering who we are. We're hashtag The Two Friends. We're two friends. We host a podcast together. Here's what we do. We pick filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
We go through their careers, their oeuvres. We're fascinated by when someone gets a big success early on,
Big success.
gets a lot of freedom later on, and often they sort of fall off a cliff.
Sure. Maybe they fall off a cliff. Maybe they make something no one understands.
Yeah.
Maybe they do both.
Yeah.
Once in a while, they get the magic back. A lot of the time, they
Sometimes.
try.
Yeah. We love redemption stories, but for us, it's like this, it's fascinating. We like looking at careers in the sort of the macro.
Mm-hmm.
And then week by week, we go into the micro. We go project by project.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Do you hear that? This is a clean snap of a new mini-series right here that we're starting. I'm doing some bad snapping.
Let's do a high five.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was really bad. Can we try CRISPR?
All right, that was pretty good.
okay.
I don't know if the
Yeah.
mics picked it up, though.
Yeah. This is a new mini-series right now, and by popular demand, the title of this mini-series is We Podcast.
Yes. Do you want to talk about that?
I would love to talk about that. So we're, for the next
8 to 9
and a half
episodes.
months or so,
Yeah.
are going to discuss the films of one Cameron Crowe. Now, let's say this right off the bat. There was some debating. We are only going to cover the things that he directed.
Yeah.
He wrote Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah.
It's based off a book that he wrote. He also wrote another screenplay that was based on leftover stuff from the book.
Called The Wildlife.
Yes.
Yeah.
We thought about doing a double episode with that, but for the sake of our show, we're trying to keep it.
I wasn't that into that.
We're trying to keep it clean, and he's got enough films. I think we are going to cover.
We're auteurs, or at least I am.
We're auteurs, yes, and we're going to cover with him. There's some interesting stuff. There are 2 feature-length music documentaries.
Music documentary. Yes.
That I think we might do as like a bonus, or we
something
put
like
them
that.
both into one episode or something like
Yeah,
that.
great. I'm going to get to learn about Pearl Jam.
Yeah,
Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam 20, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also, he has directed a handful of music videos.
Sure.
And
We'll probably get to those in another bonus episode. Is that the plan?
yes, I think by the time this episode is released, it will be too late for people to attend this, but we are going to be doing a live episode at the Del Close Marathon, the
We'll tweet
UCB
about
Del Close Marathon.
We'll tweet about it.
We'll be doing that with a special guest. It'll be a 45-minute episode because
It'll
we're
be a little
time
puncher.
constraints.
It'll be a little...
But we're going to go through some of the music videos that old Crow.
In 45 minutes, we will probably just set up the premise of the podcast, talk for 5 seconds, and then sign off.
Well, here's something that usually takes about 45 minutes. Introducing the third member of our Motley Crew.
I'm nodding,
right?
but I'm more
of
like
our Pearl
shaking.
Jam.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He is the producer of this show.
Yes.
Of course, manning the ones and zeros, chiming in with his own opinions, generally just, keeping us together. We are the ghosts that haunt his studio,
Mm-hmm.
and he is the gatekeeper, I guess. I don't know. My metaphor's not tracking. His
You're
name...
adding shit. Yeah, okay.
his name is Benjamin Hosley.
Right.
Hello, Fennel.
And there have been some complaints that Hello Fennel has not been mentioned
Explained.
in a
Or
while.
has not been mentioned.
Oh, explained. That's another thing we're talking about. We might do a best-of episode.
Where we just explain the weird in-jokes?
It's like a syllabus for some of our in-jokes.
Oh, my God.
We might do that if we have a week where we can't record. We cut together an episode where we explain some of the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are all these different nicknames and people don't know where they came from.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool, although probably a lot of work for Ben, to go through the old episodes and find the first mention of every dumb fucking nickname.
Agreed. But let's say this. If you're a listener of the show, right, and you're listening at a different point, you're going back listening to old episodes, you re-listen, whatever it is, if you have ideas of some moments that you would want included in a best of, they don't have to just be bits, they don't have to be explanations of things, they can be moments of
I'm eating a muffin.
adept criticism. Well, this is a classic bit, is eating on mic.
Yep.
if you have any suggestions like that, please email us at blankcheckpod@gmail.com.
Is it blankcheckpod or podcast? I can't remember.
I think it's pod.
It's great that we don't know.
Yeah.
Also, we are opening a new mini-series by you talking about the backstories.
I know,
of, like,
Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Twitter, Facebook, all those places you can hit us up. I read every email. We never respond to them. I'm bad at emails. But know that they're always read and cataloged and processed, your suggestions.
Sure.
And feel free to suggest any things you want in the best of. Because people who are jumping in right now, new miniseries, they like Cameron
They
Monroe.
might be confused.
They might be confused. They might go, Ben Hosley. Okay, I got it. But then if I were to say producer Ben, they'd go, okay, that still makes sense because he's the producer of the show. If I were to say producer Ben, they'd go, well, I guess because he's a
you did
professional
this last
doer.
time. Don't annotate every single nickname. It takes forever.
They dropped the C, though.
The
That's what happened.
Benducer, yeah. I mean, we're combining the two. It's a portmanteau. You know, the
Sure.
peepers because sometimes he likes to peep in and watch people fucking.
Well,
you know,
no, hold on.
He's
Keep going.
He's the tiebreaker because if you and I are disagreeing on something, he's
breaks
the
the tie.
third party.
Yeah,
He's able
yeah.
to do that. Birthday Benny because he
Has
has
a
a birthday
birthday,
once a year.
Oh, hey, actually, after this episode airs, it had been my 31st birthday.
Oh wow!
So
Hey, Benny.
Never more topical.
that's right.
Another one that's topical, Mr. Positive, because he sounds pretty good right now.
Mhm.
Usually it's an ironic nickname because he's miserable, but right now I think, Ben, you're in a pretty good mood, right?
Yeah, feeling good.
You seem to be doing pretty well in your life. The Poet Laureate, because when he jumps in with this sort of super on-point film criticism,
This is the
he
first
sounds more
episode
literate
of a mini-series.
than the two of us, but it's
This
because
is the
he writes
first
shit
episode.
down
and we have a hard out in
In-
90 minutes.
advance.
Uh-huh.
Hello Fennel obviously is
No, not explained. Carry on.
a nickname there.
No, because that needs to be a mystery. People need to figure it out for themselves.
yeah, go back, listen to the archives.
I forget which episode it is. I actually re-listened to it recently, though, and it's still funny.
It's always funny.
Yeah,
Don't
I listen to my podcast. I listen to my own podcast.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. Don't call him Professor Crispy. You may be so inclined because
No, but don't.
the audio is crisp, but don't do it. It's
Don't
just
do it.
rude. It's rude. It's 2016.
And
Come
then there
on.
are some podcast names.
He's the fuckmaster too. Don't forget that he's the fuckmaster.
Sure, okay. But then there are some podcasts.
Because he's the master of fuck.
There are some mini-series specific names.
Well, he graduates to different titles,
Yeah,
such
so-
as producer Ben Kenobi, Kylo Ben,
Yep.
Ben Night Shyamalan, and Ben Sate.
What will his next name be? We don't know.
Someone already suggested the one that I think it's going to be.
Tell me. I want to know.
You want to know on air? I mean, usually we save it for the last episode.
All right, fine.
I'll save it. I just got one suggestion that was so perfect.
I just want to know. I'm so.
I'll tell you off mic.
Yeah, I know you will.
Cameron Crowe.
Cameron Crowe. So why do we want to do Cameron Crowe, Griffin Newman?
Well, we thought it would be interesting to mix it up with a non-genre filmmaker.
Yes, we've done genre filmmakers like M. Night Shyamalan, George Lucas, and the Wachowskis.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're doing a man who traffics in the rom-com.
The dramedy. I'd say the rom
The
drama.
drum. Yeah. You
Rom-dramedies.
sort of reinvented the romantic comedy drama genre into his own weird sort of optimistic thing. Weird sort of
Yeah.
super specific.
He's as much of a genre-bending guy as the other
He really
filmmakers
is.
that we've discussed, but in a much smaller scale, more focused, low-budget kind of way, which makes him
Sure.
really fascinating. It's very easy to redefine everything if you're like doing like bombastic,
Yeah,
super
sure.
visual effects, super designed movies. And Cameron Crowe just came out. This is his first film, 1989. Say anything, and just boom, he's got a voice. This guy's got a style. He's got a tone. He's got an approach with actors.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sort of rhythm to his movies, you know?
An offbeat rhythm.
There's a patter, you know, and there's
An offbeat pattern.
and there's a sort of an earnestness, you know, like
Yeah,
a hip
right.
earnestness.
Right. Which is sort of counter to the like Gen X sort of cynical kind of 80s tone you see, or 90s tone even you see in movies like Reality Bites,
yes.
in movies like that.
And his golden age is, let's say, 1989 to 2000, right?
Absolutely. The 1990s.
Yes.
One
okay.
could say. Yeah.
And it's a time where culture is becoming more and more cynical,
yes.
and his films get more and more poignant and become more and more sort of culturally connected. I
Yes,
think.
eventually I think maybe to their detriment, but for a while there, it's
Yeah.
great. He's going against the grain
He-
in a good way.
It's weird. He like simultaneously was going against the grain and tapping into something that was very present.
Sure.
And his films, were able to. They're kind of these incredible comfort food movies because they're like these warm bath movies that also have an intelligence and an integrity to them. You know,
Mhm.
it's not like watching 13 Going on 30, which is like very well made film and very entertaining.
Right.
But like Cameron Crowe movies are an easy watch and they make you feel like really fucking good.
And they're smart.
And they're smart.
I mean, I like 13 Going on 30.
I do too.
I think it's a really cute movie.
I don't mean to throw 13th Going on 30
We
out.
can throw it under the bus.
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
It's not smart.
right. But like Cameron Crowe, I mean, it's a warm bath thing. It's like he's very insightful, and he speaks to certain things in the human condition, these very specific moments. He gets to these, sometimes just a line that cuts through all the bullshit and captures a feeling. He's obviously a very musical guy.
Well, he starts out as a music critic before moving into the world of cinema.
Almost Famous is
Cinema.
Cinema. Almost Famous is a largely autobiographical film, so I don't know how much we can talk about his backstory here because we'll get to that
it.
movie.
We'll get to his
eventually.
childhood and his Rolling Stone
But
career.
yeah, he was a very young journalist,
Mhm.
and then followed around bands for Rolling Stone, and then after that, he had dropped out of high school. He was now older. He decided to go back to high school because he looked very young
Yeah.
and had sort of missed out on a lot of his high school experience, and went like undercover as a reporter in a California high school.
He did.
And then wrote a nonfiction book about that called Fast Times at Ridgemont High,
Yes.
which was adapted into the two aforementioned films, Fast Times at Ridgemont High and The Wild Side.
Yep.
Two separate films starring two separate Penn brothers about Southern California high schools.
True.
The Fast Times was huge.
Yeah, well, it was a sleeper hit, but a big one.
It landed with a real
the
cultural
Wild
impact.
Side or whatever that,
Was not a
that,
hit.
that sank without a trace.
Yeah,
I own the book Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
it's very hard to find, right?
Very expensive.
Yeah, how is it?
Oh, it's really good. It's
Yeah.
a great book. Yeah, actually, yeah, right. I forgot that I
Can you
actually
talk
read that.
about the book a little bit?
It's vignette-y, and more vignette than the movie.
Yeah.
So every chapter is basically just like a little high school story. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it keeps repeating the characters and stuff like that. But it's good. It's very smart. It's got like a teeny voice. It's good. It is hard to find. It's impossible to
It's
find.
very hard to find. I
It
know.
costs hundreds of dollars on Amazon. I was once at a relative's house, like an old relative, and saw it on the bookshelf, and I took it. I was like, I've always wanted to read this, and I read it.
Yeah, good
And now I
catch.
have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How similar is it to the film? Like, are the characters sort of direct
darker.
fictionalizations of the characters in the book, or is it a lot of
Mostly.
composite-y
There's some
kind of-
composite things, but mostly it's yeah.
I mean, but is there like a Spicoli type character in the
Yes.
book?
Oh, there's
Okay.
Spicoli's in the book. There,
Yeah.
The main characters in the book, the rats in the book.
Mhm.
You know, I do think that one day we should do Amy Heckerling
I do too.
because one, there's not a lot of female directors
Yes.
out there in
Yes,
general.
who have enough films to
Who have-
cover.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And two, she's fascinating, even
Yeah.
though she's made some stink bombs,
Yeah, but she's made some really important movies
like
as well.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
And Clueless?
What was the movie we were talking about in the last episode, the Chevy Chase movie that she wished she had never made?
National Lampoon's
It's
European
like- it's
Vacation.
Right, the third or the fourth Vacation.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's the film
The
she
fourth.
made right after Fast Times.
That sounds plausible.
I think that was her Fast Times follow-up. But Fast Times was a cold hit, but it really connected, right?
It connected, and it made stars out of tons of people: Jennifer Jason Leigh, Sean Penn, Forrest Whitaker. Like so many
Yeah.
actors came out of it.
The great
Phoebe
Judge
Cates,
Reinhold.
Mock
Van
Trial with Jay Reinhold.
slip-ons.
I'm sorry?
Van slip-ons.
Yeah, it made stars out of Van slip-ons. Yes, exactly. That's why we call Ben Hosley our finest film critic. Because it made stars out of Van
Out of
slip-ons.
Van slip-ons.
It exposed those shoes to the mainstream, and
It
we're
did,
still
yeah.
wearing it to
Yeah,
this
we're-
day.
Yeah. yeah.
I had a pair of Vans just a few years ago.
It's,
We should stop the podcast there.
yeah, we should.
Perfect.
That was a great insight.
That was a good. So what are we at? Like 10, 11 minutes?
About 15.
Oh wow, Jesus Christ, we gotta get moving.
You
okay.
you literally spent so long on fucking Ben's names, but I mean, look, that's what we've written ourselves into here.
Yeah, we're in the pocket now. Fast Times is a great movie. It had a specificity of in the characters and was like consistently funny without feeling forced.
I agree, but
It's very human setups.
but it's also honest and dark.
Yes.
and I think it has a brutality that was rare for the genre.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Struck an interesting balance. I don't know if you have your Wikipedia open here, but
I do.
As best
do.
I remember,
I do.
after that, the film makes a sort of splash, and James L. Brooks goes to Cameron Crowe.
Yeah, you're correct. Yes,
Yeah, and says kind of,
he liked his voice.
Right.
I like your voice.
what would you want to make next?
And Cameron Crowe was like, "All right, buddy."
Right.
He held his arms above his head. Sorry,
Yeah, David's
Only
holding his arms
Griffin
above
can
his
see
head.
that. Fast Times came out. The movie came out in '82, right?
Wow, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Wildlife comes out in '84.
Yeah.
So it takes a while.
Yes.
It takes a while life,
One comedy film.
if that, for Say Anything to come out in 1989.
Mm-hmm.
1989.
The year of My birth.
The year of my brother's birth.
Yeah.
When were you born exactly?
February.
So you're okay. You're right at the top.
Yes.
Right at the top of 89.
Yeah.
My brother was December.
I'm at the tippy top.
But it was produced by James L. Brooks, as I just mentioned, executive produced.
Yeah. James L. Brooks goes to him. He says, "What do you want to make?"
He's got a few Oscars under his arm as he says this.
At
He's
this
like,
point.
"Yo, I'm James L. Brooks." He's got some Simpsons residuals under
Yeah.
the. No, 89 is
it
when
was
it
the year
starts.
it started.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got like an empty briefcase that's about to be filled with Simpsons residuals. How rich do you think James L. Brooks is?
I feel like I looked it up recently. I think he's over 200 million.
He must be so fucking rich.
Yeah.
Every Simpsons episode has his name on it.
Yeah. I think he's in the hundreds of millions.
It's crazy. I wonder if he'll ever. We should do him.
Oh, no
'Cause
question.
How
we're
do
doing
you
him.
know is sort of the super ultimate blank check rom com.
Yeah, that movie
in that it cost
$120 million.
Yeah.
And takes place in
is
3
crazy.
rooms.
And is insane.
Yeah, it's insane.
And it's about Paul Rudd going to prison.
Yeah, and that's his follow-up to Spanglish.
Yeah, which is also, insane.
Yeah.
That's a crazy movie.
Yeah. James L. Brooks, we're doing, no question, we're doing James L. Brooks at some point. But James L. Brooks reached out, said, "I like your voice," brought him in, worked on the script for a while, and then when he was done, he said, "Why don't you direct it?" And Cameron Crowe said, "I don't know how to direct. I've never directed before."
Sure.
And he said, "If you can write, you can direct."
That's what James L. Brooks did.
And that was James L. Brooks'
That was his model.
thing for a while was it wasn't the exact same model, but some years later, the same sort of process repeated with Wes Anderson.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah. James L. Brooks was behind
Bottle Rocket. They saw the short
Forgot
film.
about
They
that.
brought
Right.
them in for 5 years, 4 years, whatever it was, a couple of years. They developed the script with James L. Brooks, and then he produced that film.
Right.
And he fought really hard to get Sony to give him a tiny amount of money to make it within the studio system, which is the
Right.
same thing happened here with Say Anything.
Right.
He had just done a couple films at Fox. He said, "Give this guy a little bit of money, low risk."
A decent. It was, and as you say, this was a 20th Century Fox. It was
Yeah.
made by Gracie Films, which is James L. Brooks, but as the end of The Simpsons. Yep.
Up next on American Dad. Sorry, I was doing the full
No, I don't like American Dad.
animation domination continues.
$16 million is the budget on
Hey,
this
now.
movie. 1989 for a movie that's set in Seattle and mostly set in rooms, and
Yeah.
cars. That's a decent. It's a
maybe
decent chunk of change.
$28 million today.
And this is a
something like that.
movie with one star in it.
Yeah.
And her name is BB Newirth.
Yeah.
There's not any. I mean, John Cusack is an actor, and he's been around for a few years.
but he was not a star.
No, not
yet.
at all.
No.
I mean, he'd been in The Sure Thing. He'd been in
Okay, so that was his first big leading vehicle,
Yeah,
but that
'cause
film was not wildly successful.
He had popped up, obviously, in 16 Candles and Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer and Stand By Me, but these are supporting roles.
was almost cast as Bender in The Breakfast Club.
Right. Yes.
He was close to a lot of those iconic
And
high school
right.
roles,
and he was
didn't get them.
Hollywood knew who he was, and obviously Joan Cusack at this point is already an Oscar nominee for The Walking Girl. I almost said
The Working
Girl.
That's crazy. I didn't realize. So I was
Because
just off on the
Working
timeline.
Girl is
Yes.
88,
Yeah, it has to
87
be.
or 88,
Right? Yeah. And this one's 89. Yes, so Joan Cusack was already nominated, already been cast member on SNL.
Yeah, she was more of a known quantity.
She has a bigger part in 16 Candles. I mean,
Right,
she
right.
had made more of a splash. There was also this kind of there was this Chicago group. I mean, there were 4 acting Cusacks, right? I think only 2 of them really kind of rose to the water, but there's Ann Cusack as well.
Working Girl 88. Just
1 year earlier, and I think there's one other Cusack who acts.
Ann Cusack, I know there probably is.
I think
don't
there's
know.
one other one.
Valentino Cusack.
But they all grew up in Chicago. Valentino Cusack, great joke, 4 comedy points.
Thank you.
They all grew up in Chicago, working with an acting teacher.
Sure.
Who was Jeremy Piven's mother.
Jeremy Piven,
Jeremy Piven.
who's in this movie.
Yes.
He
Jeremy
has to
Piven
chill.
and Shira Piven.
He still has to chill.
You must chill. They should play that clip anytime Jeremy Piven does anything. Someone should just
I have
pipe that
hidden
up.
your keys!
Yeah. Listen, I love being on stage. I love Broadway, but my mercury levels are too high. You must chill.
Mr. Selfridge deserves to be nominated for 15 Emmys.
You must chill.
Mr. Selfridge. He looks older in Say Anything than he does 25 years later.
No
it's
question.
the weird Piven thing where he aged backwards, but not really.
Yeah.
He fake aged backwards.
Yeah. Well,
He goes from being bald to having some hair to having a full head of hair.
yeah, he pulled a Benjamin Button. And much like Benjamin Button, the team at ILM had to pull off most of the effects.
Fucking Benjamin Button. Yeah. All right. So 16 mil.
But my point is, the Chicago actors, Piven's mother teaches the Cusacks, teaches the Pivens, and some other people who come out of that generation, and they sort of all hit Hollywood hard. It's like, these are these serious actors. They're serious, stage-trained actors, but they all have this very light touch, this very sort of effortless, behavioral acting style.
Right.
And they come out strong. And Cusack was sort of in the circles, but he wasn't getting that big shot.
No, but here's his shot. He was not throwing away his shot.
He was not throwing away a shot. In the immortal words of Waitress the Musical, he was not throwing away. That would have been funnier if I didn't fuck up the word.
Immortal worlds. So he had been an 8 Man Out, and next year he's going to be in.
He was already an 8 Man Out then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And next year was going to be the Grifters,
right? Which
I feel like is the start of him being a Hollywood star.
Agreed.
And then he's in things like, Bob Roberts, and no, he's barely in that.
How old is he in this film?
Like, how old is John Cusack, the actor?
Yes.
Assuming it's shot in 88.
Yeah.
Fair assumption, he's 22 years old.
Okay. And he's playing 19.
And then
alongside
him is Ion Sky.
Ion Sky.
I'll excuse myself.
Yeah.
Is Ion Sky, who is an English actress, but you wouldn't know it.
Really?
Well, because her mother's American. She's sort of like...
Was she raised in America or in England?
I believe she was raised in both. She grew up... She was a kid in England, moved to Los Angeles, and attended Immaculate Heart High School and Hollywood School for the Performing Arts.
Interesting.
But she was only 18.
I was going to get...
In this film.
She feels like a genuine teenager.
And she had just been in River's Edge, and then this year she's also in The Rachel Papers, which I don't know if you've seen that movie. It's an English movie.
No.
But she's naked in it a lot.
Okay, well, congratulations, David.
Yeah, I saw it years ago. It's an adaptation of a Martin Amis book. It's a decent movie. It's a little silly. Sort of a bawdy comedy.
Not to put her on blast, but my sister was talking about Martin Amis's daughter goes to her high school, or rather, my sister just graduated from high school.
Congratulations.
So, congratulations, Romley. Martin Amis's daughter went to her high school.
Sure.
Or she went to Martin Amis's daughter's high school. Whatever. Who fucking cares?
What the fuck is your story?
And she was like talking about the girl, and she was like, and also her dad is Martin Amis. Like Romley was like name dropping.
And you were like, huh?
I was like, who? And she was like, oh my God, you don't know who Martin Amis is? Martin Amis is like this, he's like such a famous novelist. Are you kidding me, Griffin? That's so embarrassing that you don't know who Martin Amis is. And I was like, what books has Martin Amis wrote?
Right. And
she went, he's like very famous.
Oh my God. So famous.
Yeah.
Does she listen to this podcast?
No, she will never listen to this podcast.
Ha! Take that, Romilly.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ion Sky, she's a very, very hot property. I feel like, she's like this up-and-coming actress, and Hollywood's got its eye on her. She never panned out.
It never connected.
I mean, she's around, and she's actually pretty good and stuff, but like I feel like she just never like became a big deal like John Cusack did.
I even feel like mid-2000s she had a low resurgence where she was...
Well, when she's in Arrested Development.
Oh, I forgot about Arrested Development.
Meet the Veals is one of my favorite Arrested Development episodes, and it's the one where Jason Bateman, Michael can't explain how she's Mae Whitman's mother, how she's Anne's mother.
Yeah.
And he keeps saying, well, you got to lock that down when they talk about getting married young, which is a line, it's one of those Arrested Development lines that's funny the first time, but then they say it so many times that it just becomes like impossibly funny. Anyway.
What I was thinking of, she has a really, really strong small part in Zodiac.
Yeah.
She's very good in that, and I think right around the same time, a year or two earlier, she plays Drew Barrymore's friend in Fever Pitch.
Yeah.
She was starting to like pop up more. Like that was like 2005 to 2007.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then she waned again. I don't know. She's a great actress.
She is a good actress. She's good in River's Edge. She's good in this. Mm-hmm. She's good in The Rachel Papers.
Yeah.
She's in Wayne's World.
Oh, yes.
Briefly.
She plays Rob Lowe's girlfriend at the beginning of the film.
But that's
like a cameo. She's in one scene, literally. She's the one who turns Rob Lowe onto Wayne's World. The opening of the film is them in bed together.
Yeah, when he's flipping around.
And she goes, stop this. These guys are funny. And she explains the appeal of Wayne's World.
She dated Anthony Kiedis from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, well, that's what happened.
Married Adam Horowitz.
Oh, I did know that.
Boys, and then divorced him.
I knew that.
So she's a painter. She wrote a children's book called My Yiddish Vacation. She's doing stuff.
Yeah, I like it.
She married a musician in a Hindu wedding ceremony in India in 2009.
Uh-huh.
So she's up to stuff, but she's sort of unlike Cusack. She's a teen idol who's probably most famous as Teen Idol. Whereas
Yeah.
Cusack, who's like Teen Idol, famous. Movie star, famous. Weird, slightly bloated, crazy person on Twitter, that's his thing now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
That's where he is at now.
I hate even talking about it.
He was pretty good in Chirac.
Yeah, and I liked him a lot in Maps to the Stars.
Haven't seen.
Liked him a lot.
What does he do in that one?
in that? Acts like a big old creepball.
Well, that's the thing.
He's got to play into it now.
It's kind of a bummer, though.
Yeah.
I feel like the last time the movies tried to sell him on us as like a regular leading man is Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yes.
That was the end of it, right?
Yeah, after that he starts doing a
Where
lot
he's
like...
with Lizzie Kaplan and you're like, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
He's like 20 years old.
Yeah.
This is weird.
Yeah. That having been said, in real life at the same time Lizzie Kaplan was dating Matthew Perry.
No, I mean, I'm not saying, it can be a little annoying in a movie when
agreed.
that's the dynamic.
And I just wanna make it
That's
clear.
all. People can date who they want to date.
I think both of those things are equally gross. I pass no moral judgment.
I would date Matthew Perry and I wouldn't date John Cusack. It's weird.
Now, at your
Yes,
current
right
age, you
now.
would date Matthew Perry?
I would. I
I
would
think
date
that's a
Matthew
big
Perry.
age gap.
I
think
you
you're
wouldn't-
very
you wouldn't
different
approve?
points
You
in your
wouldn't
life.
approve?
I don't know how much you'd have to relate on.
I'd like to talk to him about like
You're
tennis
going through very
and,
different things.
and what's Tom Lennon really like.
Okay,
and-
do you-
Double takes.
But yeah, double takes is. I mean, that is. He could really school
20
you
minutes.
on that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
but here's my question: do you want to like date like Matthew Perry a little bit casually, or do you want to be like dating Matthew Perry? Do you know what I'm saying?
I want to be dating him. I don't want to date him
Okay,
casually.
see, I would go on a couple dates with him. I would not. I would not
Here's
get
something-
serious
here's
with Matthew
something
Perry.
you don't know, and we should move off this, but I really want to tell you.
Yeah.
Matthew Perry is indescribably rich. He probably has a lot of nice
do
houses.
know that. I
I'd
do
go
know
hang
that.
out in those houses.
Yeah, but if you're gonna marry rich, marry James L. Brooks.
Oh, I'd love to marry him. He's probably happily married.
Yeah.
He strikes me as a guy who's happily married.
Okay. He definitely is.
Yeah.
Canyon Jim on
He's
Twitter.
probably like married to some nice person.
Yeah, I think they've been married for 82
Yeah,
years.
and right, exactly. And it's like they just eat like strawberries. Like they just hang out.
Okay, quick
They
sidebar.
like go to the farmer's market.
Quick sidebar. If you could marry any cast member from Friends, who would it be?
Me?
Yeah.
Schwimmer.
Ben?
Yeah,
Lisa Kudrow.
good
That's
call.
my
Good
answer,
call.
too.
Yeah, I've got no beef with that. But
My
she's
answer
happily
too.
married.
Not to be heteronormative, but it's just I'd go Kudrow, then I'd say LeBlanc is my number 2.
Yeah, he's fine. I would happily marry LeBlanc. I wouldn't want to marry Aniston just because it feels like a lot of tabloid pressure and stuff. A lot of,
I don't want to be part of a narrative.
I was
Do you know what I'm
about to
saying?
say that. You
That's
get
what
put
I
into
don't-
a narrative.
You get put into a narrative. I just want to live my life. I don't want people reading into it, as a plot point.
But
I feel like Schwimmer would be fun, though. to hang
Schwimmer's
out
great.
with.
All right, here's some things about Schwimmer. One, he plays my favorite character in Friends. Ross is easily my favorite friend.
He plays my favorite character on The People vs. O.J. Simpson.
He plays my favorite character on The People vs. O.J. Simpson. He goes to the theater a lot. I have been at 2 separate Broadway plays
Yeah.
or off-Broadway plays and seen him in the audience.
He does a lot of theater, too.
And he does theater. He directs.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of smart. Jewish. My mom would be happy.
Yeah.
And, maybe he learned to cook for Feed the Beast, so maybe he's got some cooking tricks up his sleeve.
He is also...
Doesn't like Watto, though. That would be a problem.
Doesn't like Watto. Is married to someone younger than all 3 of
Yeah,
us.
I know.
He's married to like a 25-year-old.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, that was a fun little...
So he's the one we could probably pull in. I mean, we're in the right age zone
It was
for
a
swimming.
It was a fun little adventure.
We could
that
go
just
swimming
did.
if we wanted to.
Ooh!
Hey, yo!
All right, end of the podcast.
Johnny
People
Cusack.
are like, oh my God, talk about Say Anything. Great movie.
Great movie.
So I've seen this movie 7 or 8 times.
I've seen
I
it-
own it. I
Oh,
like this
really?
movie.
Okay.
Yeah. I hadn't seen it in a while.
Mhm.
And, you worry, especially with like a movie that was very generationally appropriate and very teen focused,
Mhm.
and a movie I liked as a teen. You worry, am I going to watch this as a grown up and think that it's lame or think that it's sort of like
Yeah.
notice flaws that I didn't see before? And I actually think I liked it a little bit more.
Yeah, I had a similar thing. I think this is the 3rd time I have seen this movie. Okay, the first time I saw it, Entertainment Weekly came out with a list of the top 25 best love stories in film.
You were, by the way, about 2 months old when this film was released in April 1999.
Yeah.
Okay. So EW comes out with best teen movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think about 2003, 2004. I mean, I was 14, 15. They come. It wasn't teen movies. It was best love stories.
Best love movies. Okay. Sorry.
right?
Mhm.
And it was number 1, and I was like, I know people like that movie, but I'm surprised they'd put a teen movie as number 1 over like Casablanca, over whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was very surprised by that. And I went like, maybe
There's not enough fucking in Casablanca. That's why.
That's why. Especially in the backseat of a car. I rented it with my mother, who
They
had
probably
also...
fucked on Sam's piano in Casablanca late at night.
That's how they wrote...
She was like, play it against Sam.
That's how they wrote
doesn't
You
say
Must
it in the
Remember
movie.
This. It was accidentally the
it
butt
was
cheeks
just-
hitting against
Mhm.
bum, 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 bum. And he was like,
Bogart's butt cheek.
Wait a second. Let's stop fucking for a second.
Yeah, that's what he sounded
I
like.
think we got a hit.
Yep, that's his.
I'm
It's like he's in the
Humphrey
room.
Bogart.
Bogey himself. Is this an episode of You Must Remember This?
Bogey.
Okay, all right. Anyway, so best love stories.
By the way, this episode was written and narrated by
love-
Griffin Newman.
I love Karina Longworth. I love her podcast.
too.
She certainly hits those T's very hard.
Really hard.
Crisp T's.
Yeah, she hits those T's harder than Bogart's butt cheeks were hitting the piano keys. You know what I'm saying?
Play it again, Sam.
Play it again, Sam.
Doesn't say that in the movie.
No. Never says it. We say it on this podcast. That's our new catchphrase. Play it again, Sam. When people say play it again, Sam,
Hashtag play it again, Sam.
from here on out, when people say play it again, Sam,
It's
go,
about
oh,
this
you listen to
podcast.
Blank Check?
Yeah, it's about this
Yeah,
podcast.
you have to promise
Tweet
me.
at us every day. If you're a real
Promise
fan of
me.
this podcast, every day at 10 in the morning, you have to tweet hashtag play it again, Sam at me and Griffin.
Yeah, and also include Barack Obama, because here's the thing, he's almost out of office.
But yeah, include Barack Obama, not at POTUS.
No,
at Barack Obama.
No, the personal account,
Yep.
because he's not going to be running the POTUS account anymore
Yep.
come next year, and we want him as the third friend.
Oh my God.
Let's throw
That'd
this out
be
there
so
right now.
good. That would be so good.
Let's throw this out there.
We're not accepting a third host,
Absolutely not.
except for the 44th president of the United States, President Barack Obama.
Yeah.
He could be the third host.
Yeah.
He'd be like, Griffin?
Producer Ben, a.k.a. the Ben Deucer,
Oh, hey, what's up?
a.k.a. the Poet
Okay.
Laureate,
We've got an hour and 10 minutes or
a.k.a.
so.
the Haas. We
Yep.
forgot the Haas.
Oh, that's a good one.
I'd like to say to the American people a hearty hello, Fennel. Which is worse, my Obama or my Bogart?
Your Bogart. Your Bogart was worse.
Bogart was worse.
Your Bogart was terrible.
Okay.
Your Bogart was just a voice. It didn't sound like it was just like, I'm Humphrey Bogart.
Humphrey Bogart. That was Peter Falk.
No, that was pretty good.
I'm Humphrey Bogart.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what about this one? I'm Humphrey Bogart. That's Pacino
I
as
think
Bogart.
I know who that is.
Yeah, Pacino,
Hell yeah.
our good friend Al. What about this? I'm Humphrey Bogart.
That's Watto.
As Humphrey Bogart. Yeah.
I mean, Humphrey Bogart's role in The Petrified Forest is somewhat Watto-esque.
Yeah.
A little 30s movie jam for you guys.
Yeah. Why you motherfuckers want to jam with that?
Next episode, The Petrified Forest.
The year's 1989.
1989.
Griffin Newman is 2 months old, and playing in the multiplexes is Say Anything.
I was about to turn 3. My mother was pregnant, but I may not have known it yet.
You're leaving something out.
What?
Ellipses.
What do you mean? Oh, the
Oh.
title is Say Anything ellipses.
Say anything, ...
Thank you.
My mom doesn't see it when it comes out because she's got a fucking new baby on.
Eh.
And then she doesn't catch up with it later. And then when this Entertainment Weekly list comes out, both of us go, huh, I've never seen that. Number one, we should rent that.
So you rent it, you
we
watch it
rent
together?
we watch it together, and both of us go, oh, it's okay.
Interesting. Okay.
Surprise number one. I mean, just because I took
The
Enterta-
hype was hard for you to... Yeah.
I take Entertainment Weekly list very seriously.
Sure.
And especially at that time, they were like, I mean, I had the Entertainment Weekly like top 25 cult movies issue.
No, I get
And that was like my Bible, and I just read through that, and I rented all those movies, and I was like, I get cult movies now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw a lot of movies that I had seen and loved, ranked lower than Say Anything. I watched it, we went, yeah, it's pretty good. We both loved Cusack, my mom and I. He
Sure.
was like one of our movie stars. My mom and I really feel like a mutual kind of ownership of the sack, you know?
I also love John Cusack. And
And-
always had.
Yeah.
Like, he was also an early favorite of mine.
And we watched it, I thought it was okay. And then I'd say about 6 or 7 years later, 2021, Living Alone, Say Anything comes out on Blu-ray for like the, whatever it was, the 20th anniversary.
Sure.
Yeah, it would have been 20. It was the 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
The Blu-ray comes out, and I rent it, and I go, I may have been too young, give it another shot. And I watched it, and I went, yeah, I like it a little more than I did last time, but I still don't like it as much as most people did. Watched it 2 nights ago. I think I finally get it.
That's good.
And I don't know if it's just that previously I was too close to some of it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think he makes a lot of his films function best as sort of like memory films.
Okay.
In the same way that Linklater movies do. There's so much about like reliving a time and a place in your life.
Yeah.
Where sometimes if you're in the middle of it, they're not as sharp as if you're watching it from the perspective that he had when he was making it.
I think that's true. I think he's very good at putting you in the consciousness of a character.
Yeah.
So this movie is very much told from the perspectives of its two teenage protagonists. They're both about 18 years old. And it has their energy, I think, which is this weird sort of mix of like super slow, laconic energy and then like sudden bursts of like crazy hormonal passion. And it like veers wildly between these two things.
Lloyd Dobler.
Lloyd Dobler is John Cusack's character, and Diane Court is Ion Sky's character.
Yeah.
Ion Sky. I don't actually know how you say her name.
I thought it was Ion.
I'm not.
I might be wrong.
funny
And I gotta tell you guys, Frasier's dad, looking young.
Well, I'll talk about him for a second. So
Yeah.
John Mahoney plays Diane's dad.
And just, Ben, for your clarification, that's the way they did that, effects-wise, is that this movie was made before Frasier.
Oh
true.
my God.
Yeah.
So just to give you a little Mahoney history.
So they were able to save
Because
money on
you
not
were-
Benjamin Buttoning him or not Jeremy Pivoning him.
I guess that makes
You
sense.
were talking about Chicago. Mahoney is a Steppenwolf Theater
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Like, which is the Chicago, this like famous Chicago theater company.
Yeah.
John Malkovich came out of it,
The great Gary Sinise.
Gary Sinise is a co-founder. And so he, he had been a big deal there. He'd taken his work to Broadway. He'd won a Tony for The House of Blue Leaves. Like, he was like this big theater actor. He had barely been in any movies by the time he's in Anything. He'd been in Tin Men. He'd been in 8 Men Out.
Mm-hmm.
But this is
Which was a Chicago movie.
yeah, John Sayles movie.
Yeah.
And so, but he's gonna be in Barton Fink in a couple of years. Like, he's gonna be in the Hudsucker Proxy. The Coens liked him. He's in like Reality Bites. He's like floating around. And then '93 he's in Frasier, and then it's sort of like he's the Frasier guy, I feel like. But he's like a great actor, and I feel like he
became Frasier's dad.
Yeah, he gets pegged as Frasier. He's great in Frasier. Like, it's a performance. Like, he's very good, but
Great. And he made tens of millions of
made
dollars.
so much money.
But it is that sitcom curse.
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, in the same way that I'm going to be stuck as
Intern?
I was trying to make a better reference, but I couldn't remember the name of the character.
I don't know.
I was going to say the assistant I played on Political Animals.
Oh,
I
you don't
can't-
even remember
I
what the
can't
name of your character
remember.
was?
I can't even do it.
Well, there you go.
I think maybe it's Rick as well. Is that
Was it
possible?
also Rick?
It might have been.
Which character of Frasier would you guys date?
Which character in Frasier would I do?
100% Dr. Fraser Crane.
Baby Newworth.
Lilith?
Yeah.
Well, she's a Cheers character. Come
She's-
on.
Is she on Frasier? No.
Yeah, she's on Frasier, but I mean, she's more of a Cheers. She never got her own Frasier. I mean, you can count her. if
Who
you
was
really
the
want.
sassy producer?
What the fuck is her name? Perry Gilpin.
Roz?
Roz. There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
Eddie.
Eddie the dog.
Yeah,
who
Moose.
was in The Artist.
Dog's name was Moose.
Yep. It was actually two dogs. Moose was the second.
Oh, boy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'll say about Baby Newworth? Because she's in this movie. Say anything?
For one scene.
Yeah.
And I watched this movie with Joanna, and she was like, "Is she at the party too?" It's a weird scene because she's the guidance counselor, but she's at like the teen party.
Yeah.
It's weird.
You know what my biggest takeaway was from her appearance in this film?
You wanted to make out with her?
Yep.
She's gorgeous.
Yep. I'll take as much of that as you got.
Did you watch the Tony Awards?
I did.
She did a number. She did Chicago.
I
She did
know.
a number from Chicago. She looked great.
You know what was fun about that number? That number happened 2 hours and 50 minutes into a ceremony that was supposed to be 3 hours long,
I know.
and they still had
They-
5 awards to give
They
out.
only had 3, but it was still crazy. They had the 2 acting musical leads
Yeah.
and best musical to go, and it was like, and she was like, Chicago, the revival. It's been running for 20 years, and we're all like, okay. I mean, great.
Yeah,
you
we know that because you do a Chicago number every year. Get with the show.
and all that jazz. Who of the main Chicago cast would you fuck in the movie?
In the motion
The movie.
picture
The-
Chicago,
Yeah. There's only one answer.
Lucy Liu.
She's not in the movie, is she?
Lucy Liu's in the film Chicago.
What does she do again?
Gets arrested.
Oh, yeah, right at the beginning. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Who's your one answer? Who?
Here? Razzle dazzle.
Oh,
I want him to razzle dazzle
he's,
me.
he's not my type.
I guess your type is not handsome people.
No, well, I'd go Lucy Liu number 1. I'd go number 2, Taye Diggs.
Yeah, he's really hot.
He looks
Chicago,
good
too.
in
He
that
does,
movie.
Yeah.
And then I'd go...
Baranski, number 3 of the bullet. All right, let's keep going.
Riley's number 3. He's a tender lover.
Who?
Riley.
Oh, John C.
Riley would work harder because he doesn't have his looks to
Mr.
lie back
Cellophane.
on. You know?
Yeah. Mr. Cellophane.
He's Mr. Cellophane. What's the movie we're talking about today?
Say anything.
Oh, right. 1989, directed by Cameron Crowe, starring John Cusack, Ione Skye, and John Mahoney. 3 powerhouse performances. Let's talk about the plot of this film. It's tough to talk about because Cameron Crowe does not make plot-driven films. That's become like a cornerstone of this show as we go through the movie and we sort of summarize the events of the film and then come up with sort of notes and opinions.
That's usually
and
our
insights
style.
as we're going through it. But these films are very sort of
They're shaggy.
and they're kind of anecdotal. You know, they're a series of little events, little moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're shaggy in a charming way. This movie starts out mid conversation.
Yes.
Lloyd Dobler, played by
Yes.
John Cusack, sitting with a character named Corey, played by
Corey Flood.
the great Lily Taylor.
She's so good in this movie.
So good in this movie.
Oh my God.
And then the third character is played by James L. Brooks' daughter,
Oh really?
Yeah.
She's adorable. Amy Brooks.
Amy Brooks.
As DC. Yeah, she's really cute, but she doesn't have much to do. She has that one moment where she's like, I wanted to say something. You're always talking over me, and like, what is it? And she's like, I forgot.
Yeah.
It's a good little moment.
And it's like a good little encapsulation of the Crow thing, which is like everyone's a person. Like he makes these
Yes,
movies
absolutely.
where like everyone is sort of a fully realized character and has their own victories and their own failures
Mm-hmm.
and aren't just there to like prop up anybody else. But the opening of this film starts mid conversation.
Mm-hmm.
He's sitting around with these 2 girls.
Yeah, and he's like, it's kind of a part of his character. Like his best friends are girls.
Yeah,
And I think in the late 80s, this is like enough of an unusual concept. It's like,
definitely.
yeah, this guy's like not very particularly typical, but he's not like alternative exactly. He just like kind of has the kind of energy where he's his best friends are these cool girls.
But they don't push it too hard.
No.
You never see him really being friendly with other guys in the movie. The
Well,
guy
no,
he seems
there's-
closest to is Eric Stoltz's character.
But there's the one scene where he's like, maybe the problem is that I'm friends with girls,
Right.
and I should be friends with guys. And he
Yeah.
goes to talk to the guys,
Well,
and they're
let's
just like
get to that.
troglodytes.
We'll get to
I love
scene.
that
We'll
scene.
get to that scene. Those guys suck, including Pivs.
Yeah.
But he's talking to Lays. I think you're right that this was kind of a novel concept at the time,
Slightly, just slightly.
and then after that, I think partly because of this film, it becomes more of a trope to have like the sensitive guy with the best friend who is a girl.
Sure.
But the whole film is setting up to he's in love with the wrong person, and he really should be in love with his best friend at the end of the movie. They
A
realize
classic
that.
rom-com trope. This is not what this
Say
is.
Anything doesn't do that. He's just a guy
But yeah,
who's friends with a gal,
I think what I like about this movie,
couple gals.
couple gals. And Lily Taylor had just been in the year before one of my favorite movies to just watch over and over again. Can you guess? It's really her only movie before this one.
Dogfight?
Mystic Pizza,
Oh right, yeah.
which she's so good in.
Dogfight was later.
She's in Mystic Pizza. She's kind of the wild character, which is funny.
Correct.
Anyway, what I like about this versus what I think is the common teen movie of the 80s, which is the John Hughes movie, is that it is less factional.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like Cusack isn't a type. His friends aren't a type.
No.
And Diane is more of a type because she's like the goody two-shoes. But I like that when they go to the party, which is my favorite scene in the movie, obviously it's an extended series of scenes right at the start,
Yeah.
it's not like a popularity thing. It's not like a weird, tense place.
No.
It's just a bunch of energy and sexy things and
Yeah.
just kind of people being like, whoa, we're teenagers, like just behaving stupidly.
Yeah.
And there are villains like there's Joe, but I mean, he's a moron. He's not like, he's just stupid.
Yeah.
Which is like mostly teenagers are mean to each other because they are fucking stupid.
Well,
And they wanted to have sex, which is a real problem.
there's the
Oh boy. Anyway, I like saying it. It just
yeah.
upends so many tropes.
there's the great Jean Renoir quote that I'm gonna fuck it up, but
Great French director.
the great French director, his quote was something like, I think it's in The Grand Illusion,
La Grande Illusion.
or maybe it's in Rules of the Game. A character
Rules of the
says, I believe maybe his character that he plays in Rules of the
Rules of
Game
the Game.
says, the great tragedy of the world is that everyone has their reasons. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe the Nazi says that in Grand Illusion. The point
What
is
is the world but the ocean but a multitude of drops?
yes.
Anyway, go on. Yes.
But that line always like hit me really hard. The great tragedy of the world is that everyone has their reasons. And
Great line.
I feel like, Cameron Crowe makes films that are on their face kind of low stakes. There aren't do or die moments. It's people trying to define themselves, right?
Mm-hmm. Especially this one, yes.
Right. They're mostly movies of like internal self-exploration. And if there is some externalized goal of what they're trying to achieve in their career, in their relationship, it's just about them trying to hit a different place in their life.
But also it's like when plot things happen, they happen because crazy things happen in people's lives out of nowhere sometimes.
Right.
Or because someone makes one dumb decision. And I think that's what Cameron Crowe eventually loses track of. But like that's how his early movies feel, where it's just suddenly there's a big plot development.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this almost feels jarring. But it's like, but he's trying to capture how life works.
Sometimes shit just happens, right?
Yeah. Where it's like boop, 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 and then suddenly just someone comes up to you and goes like, this amazing or terrible thing just happened.
Boom, 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 and you go back to boop, 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 boop. But this opening scene, right? I forget what the first couple lines are.
Oh, you really want to concentrate on this opening scene.
I think the
it is a
scene's
great
really
scene.
fascinating.
I agree.
There are a couple opening lines I was trying to write down, but I think I missed them that are happening over sort of the opening titles of the film.
Uh-huh.
And then when we cut into the bedroom and we see them there, because it starts with like a skyline shot.
Seattle.
Right. One of the first things that John Cusack, I believe the first thing his character says, because the dialogue we're hearing before that is Taylor and Brooks.
Uh-huh.
He goes, I'm going to ask at Diane Court.
Right.
The movie gets straight to the point.
That's what it's about. It's about him wanting to ask her out.
Right.
And that's what his character is about for the whole movie.
Right.
I feel like a lot of movies, he would have other goals or problems, but as he keeps being asked, like, what he wants to do with his life, and he keeps replying half jokingly, like, I want to be with your daughter. I want to be with Diane. But that's actually true.
Yeah.
That's basically what he's got right now.
Yeah.
He knows they'd be good together. He likes her.
Yeah.
And he wants to be with her. That's what he wants to do.
Well, I just like that the two of them, the two friends, not hashtag the two friends, but his two friends.
Move on.
Let's make it clear. They're not edging on our territory.
On.
They're immediately like, Diane Court, like she's like a brain. She
she's a
doesn't
brain.
socialize.
She's valedictorian. Yeah.
And you think about this. He goes, what about the movies? Would the movies be a good second date? And they go, you haven't had a first date.
And he's like, yeah, we did. We sat together.
We sat at the food
At
court.
the
We
mall,
sat together
yeah.
for a little while and we talked.
Right. Now, he thinks this happened. We never see this.
Yeah.
She just seems to have no memory of it.
Yeah.
But it definitely happened for him. He calls it later our controversial first date. Yes.
But did you ever have this in high school where you just one day like look at a person who's obviously existed for a while and just go like, oh, I'm going to have a crush on her now?
Kind of. Now, I don't know if the listeners know this. I went to a boys' school.
Oh, boy.
So it's a different vibe. There's less
Or
of
should
that.
I say, oh, boys.
Oh, boys.
Oh, boys.
So when you meet a girl
Yeah.
at a boys' school, and I met plenty of girls, and I have my, my romances and all this.
Okay, humble brag.
But it's more like when you meet a girl, you're a little more conscious of like, ooh, a girl. Okay. Because
Yeah.
all I see all day at school are boys. Like, here's a girl.
Yeah.
Like, I should think about her like a little more consciously than just like, duh, Yeah.
I guess this thing I'm getting at.
I mean, I'm
yeah.
a heterosexual man.
Right.
So that's how my brain worked. That's all.
Yeah.
Like, not to be, like not everyone at the boys' school was thinking this way. Put it that way.
Wait, put it.
There were some gay boys at the
Right.
school.
Yeah. So the way you'd put it was.
That's how I would put it.
Yeah. Right.
It is the rules of the game, your quote.
Oh, thank you. Okay. And I think it is Octave. It is his
correct. You're
character.
correct.
I always, I get.
You
I get
tripped
scared
up on your own anxiety.
I don't want to misattribute it, but that's what I kind of knew in my heart. It was that character. Anyway.
So he wants to take Diane out on a date.
Oh, no, but what I was going to say was, I distinctly remember in high school, like one day,
crushes,
walking past a lady who had like, I'd been in the same building with for years.
Sure.
And just like nothing changed externally. It wasn't like she came in with some fucking Ali Sheedy makeover and I was like, I never noticed you before.
Sure.
I just
more of the Hughes crappy.
Right. I would just go like, oh, I could have a crush on that person.
Sure.
And then I would just the next day decide like, I have a crush on that person. How am I going to talk to her?
Okay, so you maybe had a slightly obsessive or fixated personality type. Yeah.
Yeah, listeners of this show might be surprised to hear that I obsess and fixate on things.
Oh boy.
But much like Lloyd Dobler, I had like a lot of female friends, and I'd go to them and I'd go like, "How do I talk to her? What would be the thing?
Sure, you would workshop.
Where is she going to be at this party? What do I do?
But what I like about this movie is that the obsession is contained to the first scene,
Yes.
and then he calls her on the phone.
Yeah. So we see him go home. He
Sure.
lives with his sister,
He lives with his older sister who has a kid.
played by the great Joan Cusack.
Yes, and the kid is played by some kid,
Yes.
and he likes to go, yeah.
He's very kiddie.
Yeah, he's a real kid.
He's a real kid.
He's a real 80s kid.
Yeah, Joan Cusack rules in this movie. She's the best.
So good. And I love that first scene where they've just graduated. The first scene where you see her, he just graduated. And she comes in apologizing, like, I'm sorry that I couldn't be there. And he's like, don't worry about it. And she's like, but you're graduating. I wish I could have been there. And then immediately she's on his case about something. Like, immediately. Yeah. And he's like, will you back off? And she's like, yeah, I'm sorry. And he's like, you used to be cool. And she's like, I did used to be cool. It's this, like, whole range of emotions in 5 minutes.
Yeah. She's his big sister with a
it's
kid
so good.
Who was abandoned by her husband.
Yes.
They live together now while their parents are stationed in England.
Munich. His parents are
Munich, right.
His parents are in the military, or at least his father.
They're in Germany right now. Yes.
You don't really hear anything about the mom, but the dad is in the military and wants John Cusack to join now that he's graduated.
Right, and isn't there a line that alludes to the fact that he had spent some time stationed with them and decided he wanted to be back in the States, and now he has to live with his sister.
He spent some time in London. That's why you are thinking of that, because she's... Well, Diane's about to go
to London, but he's also been there. Right, because he knows cool London places to recommend her.
Cool, yeah, totally. Bangers and mash.
Yeah, in between these scenes, right, there is the scene of John Mahoney and Ion Sky in the car.
Mahoney is so good in this movie.
This is an unbelievable performance. This is one of the things for me that, like, clicked this time watching it that I don't think I was old enough the two previous times to really understand that character. Like, I understood his actions and what he was doing.
Sure.
But it always was like, oh, so he's just a shitty guy. And I watch this movie now as, like, somewhat of an adult.
Sure.
And I totally understand the fear that drove him to do these shitty things.
No, exactly.
And the delusions, the way he lies to himself and justifies his actions.
That's what I think the movie gets at from the very first scene, where she is going through her speech, the valedictorian speech that she's going to give, and she has this lame joke, which is like, I've seen our future, and I just have one thing to say. Go back. Is that it?
Yes. And
he's
loses
just like, Oh, that's great, sweetie. Go back. And it's just like, there's no one on earth who would think that was that funny.
No.
He doesn't think that's that funny, but he's thrown all his eggs in her basket.
Yeah.
And, like, we're just getting it immediately. And, like, obviously this is the mistake he's made.
He thinks his daughter is incredibly special, which I think the film also argues she is.
Totally, yeah.
And he is so blindly afraid of
anything going wrong in her life.
Of her, for any reason, not being able to live up to her potential.
And he has, like, they've basically, like, planned, it's kind of like the Gilmore Girls dynamic, but much more intense. It's like, since she was a kid, the plan has just been, like, you're going to be valedictorian, you're going to, like, get this fellowship, you're going to go to the best school, you're going to get the best jobs, you're going to be on think tanks, you're just going to be an important person, and you're so smart.
And she has this very close relationship with her father. He is also, like, her best friend. They can say anything to each other.
And he administers an old folks home where she helps out.
But I like the sense that it's not that he's sort of this, like, controlling kind of stage
That's
dad.
what I love about it. He's not controlling. You think early on when she comes home late from the party, he's going to chew her out. He doesn't. He's just like, hey.
He loves her unconditionally.
And she's like, I'm glad I went. And he's like, great.
He knows how smart and talented she is.
Right.
He is terrified of anything getting in the way, any common thing that could trip up any kid. What if she starts drinking? What if she gets in with the wrong crowd? What if she socially becomes obsessed with this? He wants her to stay on the path to achieve some sort of greatness. I also like that the greatness isn't specific.
No.
He's not going, you got to be a lawyer or a doctor.
No, it's just he knows she's going to be important.
You have ability.
Yeah.
And I want that to be placed somewhere important and not diluted at all in the way that can often happen in high school.
Exactly.
And she is, very dorky in that she really just cares about this sort of stuff and has no social life whatsoever. But she's not socially inept.
No. She's more socially untested.
Yeah.
And because she's been, like, and they mentioned earlier, sacrificing her social life basically to go to classes and, like, do all this extra stuff. And so she's valedictorian.
She makes the speech. And
she makes a speech. The joke doesn't go over well, but she makes a speech and then she seems to kind of go off script and she says, like, I've considered the future and I'm really scared.
Yeah.
Which seems like an honest admission and not like a phony one.
Right.
Which is a nice moment. And then Lloyd calls her up.
Well, Lloyd photobombs her. He does the original photobomb.
He does. He photobombs.
He goes to Corey and he goes, take a picture. I'm going to stand behind her. And then turns just at the right moment.
I feel like we should move.
I agree. I just want to give him credit for being the original photobomber.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Hashtag the original photobomber.
He calls her up. Hashtag play it against Sam. He calls her up on the phone.
Yeah.
and like doesn't even really wear her down. Now, I mean, I feel like this is what I was afraid of rewatching this movie.
Yeah.
Is you rewatch some of this stuff that was romantic when you were younger, and then when you're older, you're like, this is about a guy who won't stop pestering some poor woman until she finally falls in love with him.
I had a big conversation last night with my best friend Sophie and Hawken, who I've referenced a lot on the show.
Love you, Sophie.
About this sort of thing in the media of like all these great romances being about a guy who won't give up trying to win over the girl.
Your romance is problematic or whatever.
Right,
Yeah,
but it sets this very weird precedent where it's like, well, eventually he wins her over, and it's fine because of the one time that she relents.
Yeah, sure.
But it's also like the line you're presenting there.
Well, I think people now just think like it's set this like bad kind of example for people, younger people, where they're like, oh, but I thought it's like if I just like bothered someone enough, maybe that would work. Or like I'm a nice guy, you're supposed to like take me seriously because I'm a quote unquote nice guy or whatever. All these sort of bad habits, bad things in the culture.
But Cusack just has this like he's got such a light touch.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think this movie mostly threads the needle. The one weird thing he does, honestly, is play In Your Eyes on the stereo for her. Like that's the one time when he's like borderline bothering her.
But I'd say it's more weird. Like, come on, you're a weird guy. Like I don't think it's too pestering.
No, me too. I mean, but that's the movie pulls it off. I think.
If there was a sequence where you saw him do that every morning, like 6 mornings in a row, you'd be like, okay, fucking take it down a notch, Dobler.
Right. Or if it was like the awful movie The Last Kiss, where Zach Braff's big sacrifice after he cheats on his fiance or whatever is that he just sits outside her house all day and night. For days and days.
Or the least romantic moment in any movie ever, which is when Walking Dead has the note cards for Keira Knightley.
Yeah. Oh, God. I mean, I hate Love Actually so much. Andrew Lincoln is who you're thinking of, yes.
Yeah.
The To Me You Are Perfect. Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead. And he played the character of Rick Grimes in Love Actually.
Yes.
Yeah, and Keira Knightley played Anna Karenina.
Yes. Yeah. And Chiwetel Ejiofor played Baron Mordo.
What was his name in Serenity? It's like the inspector, but it's not that.
I've never seen Serenity.
He's so good.
Yeah. You know what? That guy, really fucking good actor.
Oh, my God. He's an incredible actor. The Operative, that's his name in the Serenity.
I saw him in something recently that was like so whatever, and he was so above and beyond.
Did you see The Secret in Their Eyes?
No, was he good in that?
No, I didn't see it. I was just wondering.
Oh, you know what he's fucking great in? And it's like a fucking throwaway of a movie? 999.
Oh, cool. Right. With, I haven't seen that.
With everybody?
With Winslet as the Jewish mobster.
She also rules in that, although putting her next to Gal Gadot makes, like, it's a little tricky. Because Gal Gadot is Israeli.
Yeah, she is.
And Kate Winslet is
is a milky English woman.
Right. And she, like, plays it well, and then anytime Gal Gadot is standing next to her, you're like, ooh.
Did you see him in something recently?
Yeah,
The Martian?
He's good. He's
so good
real
in The
good
Martian.
in that. He's good. Here's the
Z
thing.
for Zachariah?
He's literally great in everything. I don't ever think I've seen a bad
Z for
performance.
Zachariah?
No, but he is very good in that.
Salt?
You know what movie he's
Who is Salt?
I think Angelina Jolie is Salt. You know
Red Belt?
Oh, he fucking rules in Red
Belt.
You know I go to the mat for Red Belt, right? But you know I love Red Belt, right?
Inside Man? He's great in Inside Man.
He's great, and I rewatched that recently, actually, on TV. You know what movie he rules in?
What?
He is great as the only black man ever in the history of New York City in a Woody Allen film. Yes.
Yeah. He's pretty good in that, yeah.
He's fucking great in that movie.
Have there ever been black people in Woody Allen movies?
Melinda, by the way. You said Miranda.
Oh, so sorry. I was thinking of my favorite Sex and the City character, Miranda.
Right, and the name's so nice, you gotta name it twice.
Correct.
I think
I'm
he's
trying to
the
think
only
of
one.
like black actors in Woody Allen movies.
I think he's the only one.
He's made so many movies that can't be true. I mean, of course it can be. Woody Allen, couple of bad things in that career there, but just wondering, like,
I cannot think of another one of prominence. I will say that. I'm sure there are a couple day player one-liners. I cannot think of another substantial character.
Yeah, and just, even though I expect nothing of Woody Allen and don't really even want to talk about him, just hearing that and then considering the fact that he's made like 40 movies.
Yeah.
It's kind of takes your breath away.
And that like 70% of them take place in New York City.
New York City.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Chiwetel rules in that movie.
Chewie!
In a part that was originally written for, do you know this? That role was written for Robert Downey Jr., and he was uninsurable.
Interesting.
So they cast Chiwetel Ejiofor instead.
in Red Belt, or which one?
In Melinda.
Oh, Melinda. Cool.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. All right. We're really off track. Say anything.
Say anything.
They go on
1989
the
American
date.
film,
They
20th Century
go
Fox.
on the
Yeah.
date. She goes, huh? ...
Yes, sorry, Ben.
They go on the date. They go to the party.
Yeah.
It's not even really a date. He says it's a date, but it's, they go to the party.
But the phone call's good. I mean, there's like he says to her like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me at the food court," and she clearly doesn't. She goes, "Okay," and he goes, "So, I want to know if you want to go out sometime." And she says like, "I'm just really busy."
She says,
right
I'm
now."
busy. She gives him a couple blow-offs, like, I'm busy that day, I'm busy that day. And he's like, well, what about this party tonight? Like, let's do the party tonight.
Yeah. And he says, I heard you're moving to London. I've actually spent some time in London. My parents are stationed there. I have some hot tips of some places you could go to. So even if just for the London tips, I mean, he's really charming. And he's not pushy. And
he's not pushy, but also I think he's appealing to a different thing, which is that she feels disconnected from her class.
Yeah.
She doesn't know any of her peers, really.
Right.
And so, like, he's giving her an opportunity to do at least mingle a little bit with, like, the people she went to school with for 4 years.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
So he picks her up. They go to this party.
Yep. He's very cool to Mahoney. He's like, I don't really drink because I'm a kickboxer. Kickboxing sport of the future. He's so fucking good in this movie.
He's so good in this movie.
This is the Cusack, this is the Cusack Bible, this movie. This is, I feel like where so many of his mannerisms, began, right?
Well, and I'll tell you this, a little less.
Sometimes they're used better, sometimes they're used worse.
Yes.
I'm not saying this is his best performance, but it's kind of the beginning of his performances.
A little less now because I'm a little bit older.
A little bit older.
But for most of the last decade, I've been fucking auditioning for shitty high school movies, right? Or college movies, or movies with very young men, right? And so often in the breakdown, the thing they write in parentheses is, think a young John Cusack.
John Cusack type. Yeah,
right? They throw that as the archetype, as the guy who's sort of smarter than everyone in the room, but isn't cocky, is very sensitive, but has a certain slickness to him,
Sure.
And has really sharp kind of comic timing.
Yeah.
And what always happens is when I go, oh, they want a John Cusack thing, and I'm not saying I'm fucking going in there and nailing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what always happens is you go in and they go, hey, can you make it a little bigger? Make it a little broader,
right.
A little more leading man.
Get away from what makes Cusack so important.
That's the thing. You look at this performance, and he's so small in it.
I mean, yeah, totally.
His face
he never
barely expresses,
right? Like a teenager.
Yeah.
He's a real teenager.
Yeah.
He's got that kind of blank face.
Yeah.
That Mahoney, the dad, is just so
very
baffled
expressive.
by.
Yeah.
And
and
he's very expressive.
Ion Sky too. I mean, John.
She's got this crazy mouth. I can't keep my eyes off.
And
her
there's
mouth.
that great
this
line.
Huge mouth. It's
Yes.
not unpretty or anything. It's just really distinctive.
But it also definitely feels like a high school thing where it's your face hasn't totally hit the final proportions yet.
Sure, right. She's a young person. Right.
Yeah, it's still all shifting around. There's the line where she goes to lunch with her mom and she's bringing over the boyfriend. And the mom goes, remember, just keep talking because when you don't talk, your mouth does that downward thing.
I forgot about that. The mom's mean.
Mom's very mean, and it speaks to the kind of thing where it's she's got this mouth that's... the other thing with her mouth is it's always agape. She's got this high school thing where she doesn't know how to keep her mouth closed, kind of.
Sure, and it often looks like she's sort of grimacing or kind of clenching her
Yeah.
teeth. She's like doing that a lot.
But she's always
Fits her
sort
character,
of
I
jaw
think.
open.
Always a little stressed out.
Cusack's always very tight-lipped.
Mm-hmm.
He's got also this kind of pursed mouth. And he's got these very expressive eyes, but they're small.
Yeah, he's a beady little guy.
Yeah, but he's got kind of a Buster Keaton
So
thing
they
going on where
go-
he's sort of stone-faced the whole movie.
So they go to the
They
party.
both also talk really quietly, which I like. The film, they're talking literally at a quiet volume.
So they go to the party.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So they go to the party. The party's great. This is my favorite scene. I already talked about
Looks like
it.
a good party. It's
No, I mean
20 minutes of the movie.
exactly. I
Yeah.
just like its unique little things. I like the Keymaster thing is great. John Cusack has made Lloyd has made the Keymaster which
by Eric
means-
Stoltz.
By Eric Stoltz, who
In Mask.
plays he plays the character he's gonna play. The college version he's going to play in Kicking and Screaming 5 years later,
Yeah.
which is the guy who's a little too old to still be hanging out, but
Right.
he's just such a party guy
The
that it's
rooster.
whatever, man.
Yeah.
Makes
Puts on the suit.
makes Lloyd
yeah.
the keymaster, so he has to decide when people get to have their keys to drive home if they're sober enough.
Yeah.
So a position of responsibility.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's important in this movie because it's identifying for Diane that it's this guy might seem like a fuck up and a weirdo, but actually he's a level-headed
He's
dude.
solid. There's something solid about him.
And you've got Jeremy Piven plays this drunk maniac who needs to chill. He must chill.
He must chill.
And Lily Taylor's Corey has this whole drama going on with Joe, played by Lauren Dean, in a wonderful, like, one-scene villain performance, basically. So funny.
She fell in love with Joe. They slept together a bunch of times. She lost her virginity to him.
He dumps her over and over again for another girl.
Well, he was always with the other
Sure,
girl.
right,
and
right,
Lily Taylor thought that at some point, because he promised, he was going to dump the other girl and be with her. It never happened, and Lily Taylor attempted suicide once because of it.
Yeah.
We get the sense fairly recently. And now she only writes songs about him.
Yeah, the film is slightly flippant about the suicide attempt, but it works because that's how teenagers are.
Yeah, I agree. I think the same thing. I mean, I think, if we're to presume the suicide happened, the attempt happened the last month, I'd say it's a little too flippant. I think it's more like a year.
Sure.
And in which case, I think it's treated with the right kind of weight for how
they're talking about
events happen in high school. They do talk about it.
And also, she has written many songs about him.
She's now
66 or something?
sort of very strong-minded about. She's not going to let him beat her down. She is going to take a stand. She's written 60 songs about him. She plants herself on the couch.
Joe
She goes,
lies when he cries.
I'm going to sing every one of them tonight.
Sure. She's singing them. They all sound pretty similar. It's very funny. Lily Taylor is hysterically funny in this movie.
There's a third friend in the girlfriend group that we're introduced to in this scene, played by
Pamela Adlon.
the great Pamela
Rebecca,
Adlon, who's referenced 2 episodes now. She was in
That's
The
true.
Animatrix as well.
Yep. Good job on you, Pam.
But she was Pamela Siegel at that point.
I had no idea.
She was, yeah. Pre-marriage. She's credited as Pamela Siegel. Anyway, yeah, she plants herself there, plays all the songs. Very quickly, Lloyd...
Yeah, they split up. They're not in the part. They're not together.
They get split up because everyone's like, what's Diane
Everyone's just
Cord
hanging out.
doing here?
Everyone wants to talk to her. Everyone wants to sign her yearbook.
They've never gotten to speak to her before in
and
this kind of
it's
capacity.
like a fucking politician has entered their midst, and they're all just like shaking hands with her, and they're like, "Oh, it's great to meet you,"
in
know,
like a human capacity,
Right.
And she keeps on looking around and seeing Lloyd,
and he's always checking in on her.
He's always checking in on her and just sort of pointing at her and giving a thumbs up, and she's like, "Yeah,
And
thumbs
he's
up."
got like the key bag on his head in one scene. I love him.
He's so cute in this movie.
Is exactly what 99% of teen comedies, teen romances, romantic comedies lack.
Yeah.
Which is not a meet cute exactly, but just like a sequence that establishes why two people might like each other. Like most of these things try to do it in these like super contrived ways.
Yeah.
Or with some sort of big grand gesture or for no reason at all, really. Then just start, And I just think it's like, you get it. You get the connection here, even though it takes a little while for it to become romantic.
But that's a really good point
You
because
get the appeals.
I think meet cutes are stupid
appeals.
because
Yeah,
you
they're
barely
usually kinda
like
dumb, yeah.
know from the first time you meet somebody. And I feel like most of the times in my life I've met someone and I've gone like, oh my God, this is the one. I've been so fundamentally wrong about that.
Yeah, well, that's your personality problem.
Yes,
right.
100%.
Yeah.
But I think you're getting at something really smart here, which is that like you meet someone and you're interested, but there's a moment later where you start to go like, oh, there might be a thing here. It's less about like a meet cute and more about like a be sweet.
Yeah.
There's a moment where you just like be sweet with each other in a movie.
Sure.
Where you're like, oh, there's some
Where
nice.
it's like, oh, when I think about this, actually, yeah.
Yeah, right. This is like,
And, I mean, as the film repeatedly sort of reminds us, Diane's a very methodical person.
Yeah.
She thinks things through.
Yeah.
She's like really careful and like collects evidence. And I mean, we'll get to that scene later, but the scene where she sort of lays out her methodology for sleeping with John Cusack, I love it. you know?
but she just has
And
to.
so we're watching that case kind of get built.
Watching this film, you need to see him present himself to her as someone who will make her feel good.
Sure.
Because that's like the one thing, I mean, she's not going to
How you
have
doing there, Ben?
time.
Ben just went,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
You're just grievousing a little bit?
No, I had a cough moment, and I did it off mic. Sorry to distract.
Yeah, I
No,
call that grievousing.
Oh, yeah, a little robot coughing.
Yeah.
so let's wrap up the party because we've got a ticking clock here.
Yeah.
But there's one
Yeah.
scene in the party I want to mention. I don't know what yours is, though. If you have
No, you
anything.
say yours first.
Well, the Joe Corey kind of confrontation where he comes to her, and I just love it because he is villainous because he's obviously manipulating her, but he's mostly stupid.
Yeah.
That's what I like about it. Like he's just sort of like, I love you, but my girlfriend's moving away, but I'll break up with her first, and then we should be together. Have sex with me, like. And it's just as dumb as you could imagine, and she gets that he's being dumb finally. Like, that's what I like about it. It feels like this might be the start of a plot for the whole movie where they're, like, together and breaking up, and she's just like, no, forget it. And she's out.
I'm going to take a stand. And it also, I mean, that defines later. The thing I like, there's a thing that keeps on repeating throughout the party, where people keep on asking him, "You're here with Diane Court. How did that happen?"
And he's
he
like,
goes,
"I asked her."
I asked her.
Right.
And when people ask her the same thing, the one time she really answers, she goes, "He made me laugh."
Yeah, it's cute.
And it's like he called me. I wasn't that sold, and he said a couple things I thought were funny, and I kind of went, "Why not?" But
I love that he says, "I asked her,"
Right.
and this guy, so this like loser guy goes like, "Hey, give me hope, man!" Like, oh yeah, like yeah.
Played by Jason Gould, son of Barbara Streisand and Elliot Gould.
Yeah, what a sexy 70s couple that is.
Have you ever seen that picture I used to be obsessed with?
Imagine him.
Have you seen that picture that's Elliot Gould and Barbara Streisand in a swimming pool and she's on his shoulders?
No.
And they're both just the most beautiful Jews you've ever seen?
Yeah, a lot of shoulder hair.
I used to be obsessed with it. There was a period of time where I was trying to make Elliot Gould my best friend.
Well, sure.
And I had that picture. I have like that. I'd never show you that thing he wrote to me.
You did. It's very sweet.
Yeah, Elliot Gould wrote me a thing once to read when I was having panic attacks.
It's cool.
That was really nice. Anyway, he's one of my favorite actors of all time. His son's really good in this movie.
He is. He's the one with the weird curly like side fade or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Look at the weird funny haircut.
The exact haircut I had freshman year of high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It was
that.
the curly flock of seagulls.
Oh boy.
It was the angle.
Why did you have that haircut?
I don't know. I'll say this.
Boy.
I got into in 8th grade. I was like, I want to have long hair. I want to look like Lars Ulrich from Metallica. So I just didn't cut my hair, and then like a year later, I just looked like a brunette Carrot Top. Like I just had this fucking mush of hair. So my parents were like, you got to get a haircut, and I was like, okay, but I want to keep it long. So I was like, let me do something that's like layered.
So they cut it on the sides
and weird. And so I did that. I don't know. I brought in some weird like Johnny Depp picture where he had straight hair, and I was like, give me this. And when I walked out, I ended up looking like Jason Gould and Say Anything. And I had that for like 3 months until I shaved my head.
Okay, so now I think we need to move past the party because
I was just gonna say there's the moment when I believe it happens at the party when Diane Court talks to Corey, and she just keeps on saying like, Lloyd's a really good guy.
Yes. When is the scene? One of my other favorite. This is later though.
Well, I don't want to get to that yet.
Okay.
But it's a really nice scene because like especially as someone dealing with a dude who's such a piece of shit.
Sure.
And as someone who is like best friends with Lloyd, but doesn't view him romantically.
Yeah.
She's kind of trying to just like, it's not just being like, please date my friend, please date my friend. I feel like she's telling Diane like, you're lucky.
Right.
That other people don't realize.
Right.
That Lloyd is such a good guy.
Yeah, that's the secret about
I've
him.
dealt with shitty guys.
I think the read on Lloyd seems to be like, Lloyd, he's cool. Yeah, I don't know that guy's vibe, but he's cool. You can kind of count on Lloyd. Like, he's all right. But he's not in with the bros.
No.
Who we see later for one scene. We like to see the bros.
Yeah.
And he's not one of them, but they're fine with him.
And he's also-
They'll talk to him.
And this Taylor Brooks Adlon group seem to be sort of, they're kind of latchkey kids in their own way.
Yeah, he's like the ultimate latchkey kid.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, sure. I mean, he's such a Gen X kid in that way.
Right, so they're not like nerds, but they're also not popular. They're just kind of kids who like exist in high school.
Sure.
Like, oh yeah, she's nice.
Which I think is one reason people love this movie is that they can glom onto him in that way. They can be like, yeah, I'm kind of like this guy. I'm not a theater kid. I'm not a jock. I'm not what. I'm kind of like this guy. I'm kind of a jack of all trades.
And there's the scene where Cusack confronts Lauren Dean confronts Joe, and is like, don't you see she's written 60 songs about you? You're like hurting her.
He's just like, what?
Please, like. But he's like, please let her out of her misery. Don't you understand that she's written all these songs? And he goes like, oh yeah, I understand it. She's going to be famous one day, and I'm going to have all her tapes.
Yeah, why do you think I keep her tapes?
Yeah, and he's just like, you fucking asshole.
But he's not. He's just kind of like,
But he's too young and too dumb at this point in time to understand that she's a human being. And Lloyd understands
how people are like often.
Yes.
Right.
When you're a
Lloyd
teenager,
is different.
Most teenagers are sociopaths to one degree or another.
Lloyd's
right?
a little different, and he's the kind of guy who, after the party, when you go to the 7-Eleven or whatever, and you're walking and you've taken your shoes off because they were high heels and your feet hurt, and there's some glass on the street, he'll sweep it aside with his foot.
And that's the defining moment. He doesn't make a big deal out of it. He's not looking for a medal. He just does it because he doesn't want her to hurt her feet. And he's observant. He's aware.
Walks her home, gives her a hug. Off he goes.
Now, I'm going to say this, gentlemen. What we just described is a lot of showing, correct?
Sure.
Yeah, that's the photo. David just found the photo. We're going to post on our Twitter of Streisand and Gould. It's the sexiest thing I've ever seen.
So it's a lot of showing. Ben, what were you saying?
But I've never seen this film prior to this viewing.
Sure.
And I got to tell you, I kept waiting for Cusack to tell me how he was feeling and break the fourth wall.
Oh, sure. You mean you were looking for a High Fidelity?
I think because I also saw Lily, right?
Sure.
And
Who's
I just,
also in High
it
Fidelity.
just
Yeah.
But this ain't a High Fidelity, baby.
no, and they're both great films. Anyway,
High Fidelity is a masterpiece.
Yes,
one
agree.
of the greatest romantic comedies ever made because it knows its protagonist is an not evil, but awful person,
Yeah.
and takes him on those terms.
Yeah.
And it knows that romance is about dependency.
Yeah.
And takes the main romance on those terms and is still a somewhat heartwarming movie that you love. It is a work of genius.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I also think I watched it again about a year ago, and it's finally gotten to that interesting point where it's a perfect time capsule movie.
Absolutely.
Where the film feels very much of its time.
Absolutely.
It feels like a period piece, but it's
Yeah.
so honed into what the culture was and the look of like the year 2000 was and the sound of the year 2000 and all of that it's like it's a perfect little movie.
But talk about a movie that is brutal about its protagonist.
Yeah, which I love.
I know.
Here's another thing about High Fidelity, one that bums me out about I think it aging poorly, and this is not the movie's fault.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember seeing that movie for the first time when you didn't know that Jack Black could sing that well?
Yeah, and it was cool when he sings at the end of the movie. Yeah.
And I like tried to show the movie to Romley, and she liked it a lot. But
She was like, I've seen School of Rock.
Yeah,
I've
I know
seen-
Jack Black can
yeah,
sing.
I've
He
seen
sings
fucking-
all the
He
time.
won't never stop
He's
being
the singing guy.
Tenacious D.
Yeah.
Anyway, this movie,
Yeah,
getting back to it.
yeah,
She starts dating Lloyd.
yeah.
At first, seems pretty gentle,
Mm-hmm.
but he comes to like a family dinner.
Yeah.
And at that family dinner, he says that he doesn't want to buy, sell, or process anything. He doesn't want to buy anything that's been sold or processed. He doesn't want to sell anything that's been bought or processed. He doesn't want to process anything that's being bought or sold or processed.
So do you know the story about that line?
No, it's so good.
That line was originally much shorter, and Cusack fucked it up.
Uh-huh.
And Crow used the take where he was trying to correct it after he had said it.
It's
so he
so
says it
good.
6 different ways.
It's such a perfect teenager at the dinner table
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
And if you notice, they cut away to the family reactions a
And they're
couple
like,
times. But I think it's also because he had to cut away from Cusack's face clearly fucking up the lines.
Yeah, sure. But he just wanted the line.
But he
yeah.
does that, and there are a couple other moments in the film like that where Ione Skye like starts saying something and then re-says it. That feels like an actor resetting on their line because they pronounce the
But Crow
first
just likes
word
the
weirdly.
weird, like, jangly energy of it.
Well, it's like
yeah.
I do it on the podcast all the time, where I go like, "Oh, that's one of my favorite words. One of my favorite words."
Mhm. And everyone loves it.
Right, and everyone loves it. People love it. They put it on T-shirts. They collect the trading cards.
Correct.
But most directors were like, "I want the line clean.
Right.
I want a clean take." And Cusack's like, not Cusack. Crow is like, "That's who these characters are. Like
Right.
they're young people. They
You
don't
know-
know how to express themselves yet.
Yeah.
And it feels human. It feels messy. It feels real. It feels honest.
I don't know if Crow was like this. I think he was. I mean, Crow's famous for playing music over the PA system while he's shooting, like
Yeah.
playing music that he wants to be on the soundtrack or wants like to be part of the vibe of the film.
He's a mood filmmaker.
to like
Yeah.
set the mood. He's famous for his somewhat unconventional methods in this regard.
Yeah.
He's not, I would say, a great filmmaker, like capital G, capital F, in terms of like where he puts his camera
He's-
or like that
yes.
kind of
No,
stuff. But he's not bad.
He's not a very visual filmmaker. I think he's very good with editing, which isn't surprising
I
because
do
he's a
too.
musical guy and there's a rhythm thing there.
Yeah.
His cinematography is clean,
yeah,
but
it's
sort
fine.
of.
I mean, we'll
Yeah.
get to it. He gets more I mean, like Jerry Maguire is one of the best edited comedies ever made.
Editing has always been a strong suit of his. Cinematography has always been sort of perfunctory. He
fine.
hires good people. The films are in focus.
Well, this film was shot by Laszlo Kovacs.
That's what I'm
It's-
saying.
Yeah, it's, it's
He hires good people, but he puts the camera in sort of just
edited by Richard Marx.
the simplest place. He has really good close-ups. Because he trusts his actors, and I think his biggest skill set is just he's amazing with actors. He writes these great characters, and I think he really loves actors. There's certain filmmakers you watch, like Crow.
Yeah.
I think when you watch Altman movies,
Sure.
obviously
Altman's
Cassavetes
a good one,
movies,
yeah.
where you sit there and you can just imagine the director behind the monitor watching the takes and just like being like, "Oh God, look how great this is!"
Yeah.
Like, look at them making all these choices. David O. Russell is when you go too far into it and it becomes indulgent.
Good call.
But these guys just kind of like love actors, love performances.
Love actors, love performances.
And you can feel the space they're giving them. The movie just becomes, at this point, sort of a slow courtship. She keeps on saying, like, we're not dating, we're friends, but then they're sort of kissing.
At the same time, we realize at the dinner table that John Mahoney's character is being investigated by the IRS for something.
Right.
So
They show
that's
up at the
kind
end
of
the dinner.
bubbling away in the background.
So I'd say there's 3 tracks set up now on this film, which are John Mahoney's being investigated by the IRS. We don't totally understand why. Ione Skye is going to England at the end of the summer. At the
So
beginning,
there's
she
a
says,
bit of a ticking time bomb.
right, and she says, like, I'm leaving in 16
And
weeks.
he's like, I want to see you as much as I can in these 16 weeks.
Yeah, 16 weeks is a lot of time. I want to see you as much as I can.
Right.
And
Because to a teenager, that is true.
100%.
Yep.
And Cusack has no idea what the fuck he's doing with his life. But
And
he's
keeps
starting-
getting asked what he's going to do.
He's
with
feeling the
his life.
pressure. BB Newirth gets out of the car.
And she's like, you really need to decide on a career. His dad, as he keeps reminding us, like wants him to join the military, but
Yeah.
he doesn't really want to be part of that corporation, as he puts it.
Mahoney's throwing a lot of shade, at his lack of focus. He doesn't
Yeah.
believe in the kickboxing thing.
Mahoney's dislike of him increases, which I like. Like, it's not like he just sees this guy and is like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
It's more like he sees this guy and is like, this guy's not a threat to my daughter. My daughter's, like, very clear-minded. She's not going to get distracted by this. He keeps seeing him and he's like, what's the deal with, like, what's this guy's problem? And then, we got to get to it because we do have to keep moving.
I know. No, I was just going to say, I like that Mahoney's problem isn't that he dislikes Lloyd. It's that Lloyd is a distraction to
Yes,
her.
right.
He dislikes how much his daughter likes him.
Yeah, he doesn't really think about him as a person much. It's more just like
he thinks
the
he's a
role he plays.
roadblock. Yeah.
Right. But then they have sex, like pretty early in the movie, like
Yeah.
45 minutes in. I don't know, like halfway through the movie, maybe.
They're in the backseat of a car.
Yeah, they have hot sex.
Yeah.
It's a fucking hot scene.
Yeah.
They're hot people.
Yeah, that's also my biggest sexual fantasy. I've never had sex in a car before. I really want to
Mm.
because I grew up in New York City. There's no cars.
Yeah, it's not really a car sex
It's not
town.
really a car town. But they do some like really really cool car fucking, and
They listen to "In Your Eyes" by Peter Gabriel, and she says, "Listen to this song. It's a really good song."
yeah, but it's just kind of playing quietly. He doesn't push it too hard.
In your
No,
eyes,
see, but it's not like that.
the
It's,
light,
it's more
the
like
heat.
in your eyes. It's just like quietly. The light,
I am complete.
in your eyes. Ben singing too. Yeah, we all have
To
to
1,000
harmonize.
churches.
Okay, ready? All three of us at once. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. In your eyes, the lights, the heat.
No,
Your
guys.
David, you're not here.
You're
Ready? Okay, wait, we gotta start over.
Ben's so monotonal. We have 15 minutes, Griffin.
3,
Griffin.
2, 1. In
Your
David.
I'm not doing this. Come on, we gotta move on. We gotta move on.
Your eyes. I am complete.
Oh god, I hate that when I start a ball rolling and then it's like I do it so often. What do I think's gonna happen? I don't know. They have sex. She explains this decision to her father.
She
I
goes
love
home.
it. She's like, I wasn't gonna do it.
He
I
goes,
thought,
where were you? Why didn't you call? I spent the night with Lloyd. So immediately when he hears that, he goes like, oh boy,
Yeah.
spent the night. Is that a euphemism,
Right.
right? And she goes, I was with him. So I think about how much I loved him, and then, how much I liked him. Then I wasn't ready to have sex, make this decision. So I told him that.
Yeah.
And Mahoney gives her, like, a kind nod. He's very proud of his daughter. And then she goes, and then I just attacked him anyway.
Right. Which is great because you can see Mahoney be like, oh, good. Like you see his face relax, and then she's like, but then I attacked him anyway. And he's just like, yeah.
He's just
it's
terrified.
great. It's
But
great.
I like that he's not angry at her.
No, he's not angry for having sex. He's not like some defender of her
No.
virginity or anything like that. That virginity is not discussed. Like,
Yeah.
they have sex because people have sex with each other.
Yeah, people like having sex.
Good.
Yeah, well, I mean,
A+ number 1. Okay.
I'd say number 2. Movies are better.
But then we see him try to buy a luggage set. Old
Yeah.
Mahone.
yeah,
Owning Mahoney.
owning
Great
Mahoney.
Philip Mahoney.
He's trying to own.
He's trying to own Mahoney.
Yeah,
But Philip Seymour Hoffman will do it
yeah.
many years later.
Goes is flirting hard.
No one has ever made an Owning Mahoney reference on any podcast ever. It's never happened.
It's one of the few Hoffman movies I haven't seen.
It's pretty good.
And it's directed by Todd Luizzo from High Fidelity.
It's true.
Tying it all
An
together.
actor that never happened.
Yeah.
He made Love Liza too, right? He did a lot of movies with PSH.
Oh, he didn't do Owning Mahoney.
He made
I'm
Love
sorry. I
Liza.
confused Love Liza with Owning Mahoney. You know what film he's phenomenal in? Jerry Maguire.
Todd Luizzo is incredible in Jerry Maguire
Yeah.
and in High Fidelity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a good run. I don't know what fucking happened to him.
What
He al-
is this music?
He also recently wrote the Michael Fassbender Hamlet movie.
What is this music? You mean Michael Fassbender Macbeth?
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm getting everything confused.
Owning Mahoney was directed by Richard Kiwanowski.
Oh, of course. The great Richard
I can't pronounce his name.
Kiwanowski.
he tries to buy a luggage set. His card gets declined.
And he's flirting with this woman. Another guy looks at him and is like, thumbs up.
Yeah, right. And he's
Nice-
like, would
nice
you want
sweet
to? And
talking.
she's like, your card got declined. And I was watching this with Joanne, and I was
Yeah.
like, could they even get a card decline in 89? Like, were there credit card machines at this point? Like, or did they still do the...
You hear
know?
like a dial tone when she swipes it.
Sure. But I love what... so I get it's early.
I think there was a
I love that
phone,
she
yeah.
says, I have to confiscate your card. Never heard of that.
Yeah.
You have to take your card away? I mean, just it doesn't work, right? I don't know.
But it's like, it could be such a perfunctory scene of, oh, look, your card's declined.
Sure.
And Crow adds this whole other element to it, which is the wounded pride of
Yes.
he's flirting with this
Oh,
woman.
God.
You get the sense that he hasn't had much of a dating life because his whole life is
But his
daughter.
daughter's about to go
Now his
away.
daughter's going
Maybe
off to
he
school.
can
He wants to get
entertain
back in.
this.
Right.
Yeah, it's so true.
There are like four things happening in
Mahoney's
this
such
scene
a
simultaneously.
boss in this movie.
You know what other movie he's great in around the same time? Moonstruck.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's really good in that.
And Moonstruck, that scene is where he keeps on, Olympia Dukakis keeps on seeing him at the restaurant flirting with these women, and then they throw fucking drinks in his face, and she's like, just cool it. Cool it, Mahoney.
You know, I rode an elevator with Olympia Dukakis at this very podcast studio once
Really?
with Joe Reed when we were coming up to record
The
our
great
episode.
Joe Reed.
We were in a podcast with an older lady, and I wasn't really thinking. I mean, in an elevator. Did I
Yeah.
say we were in a podcast?
We got to be in a podcast with an older lady. We
and,
haven't covered
and I
all
wasn't
older
really paying
ladies, yeah.
attention. And then we got out, and Joe Reed was like, "That was Olympia Dukakis, Academy Award winner."
Of course, Joe would know that.
100% Joe would know that.
Joe Reed, the king of best supporting actress.
Yes. Anyway, so it's she breaks up with him.
The dad.
It really kind of happens out of nowhere. Not at quite, but the dad's just kind of like, you need to break up
Mahoney
with him. You're
gives a
moving
big
away.
speech. He's like,
Yeah.
you're moving away. You don't want to get tied down. You
Give
don't
him
want to
his
go
pen.
think about any of this. And she goes, how am I supposed to do that? And he goes, just give him this pen.
Now, Lloyd at this point has sent a letter
Right.
that is a big romantic overture.
She also says, I would never give him a pen.
Yeah.
She, like, when he suggests the pen, she's like, that's
I would never do that.
fucking
That's weird.
dumb.
That's weird.
dumb.
But indeed, that's what happens.
She doesn't have a better idea.
They have this car ride where where Lloyd's trying to go to the next level.
Yeah.
You know, I love you level.
Yeah. And there's a great part where he goes, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. I want to tell you. And she goes, don't say it. And he goes, you don't even know what I'm going to say. And she goes, no, I know what you're going to say. And he goes, I love you.
And she's like, we should see less of each other.
Yeah. And he's like,
Here's a pen.
what are you saying? And she goes, I think we should go back to being friends. And he was like, that's what we are. We're just friends. We're just hanging out. And then she's like, I think we should spend less time together.
Right. She has to
We should stop seeing each other.
break up with him.
Yeah.
Now, so this is I guess this is the part I was worried was going to be just whatever, like in a different light. That he's bugging her, he's calling her,
don't
he
think
plays.
so.
No, I think it works.
Yeah.
It's fine. I mean, mostly because it's not a big part of the movie anyway.
Yeah.
And the movie basically invests the whole part of them being broken up in just him holding up the stereo.
Yeah.
Like that. It's like that's like the whole story. We got it.
Well,
it.
that's, I mean,
He's always gonna be in her mind. Like he's like, you know, she's trying to forget it, but he's still kind of thinking about. She's
right, but
thinking about it.
that's the moment that makes Cameron Crowe as a filmmaker.
Totally.
Like, I don't think that's the best moment in the film.
No, but it's just so memorable and weird.
It's so weird, and it is. He's able to capture an entire feeling in an image. For someone who's not a very
Absolutely.
visual filmmaker, he knows how to use performances, and he knows how to use action, showing rather than telling, you know?
Yes.
And he nails it.
And then the movie. What's interesting is then the movie kind of joins its two plot lines with that very idea.
Yeah.
And it's like basically she realizes she still wants to be with Lloyd, so she has to figure out if her dad is really guilty of tax fraud.
Yeah.
And she goes to the IRS where she meets who?
The great Philip Baker Hall.
Such a great one scene performance. The kind of shit he just does on the reg.
I watched Boogie Nights the night before I watched this, just
Why?
by chance.
Why did you watch Boogie Nights?
It's on Netflix, and I couldn't sleep, and I decided to watch all 3 hours of Boogie Nights. Okay? So I watched Boogie Nights the night before this, where he also has a little more screen time, is essentially the one
Yeah,
scene.
he's not really in much. Yeah.
It's a similar thing where it's an office scene where he sits down.
No, you listen to me, Griffin. I
Yeah.
wish I could do him. If I could do a Philip
Baker Hall.
If I could
can't
do a
it yet.
Philip Baker Hall, I would be set in life. What a particular voice he has.
If you could do Philip Baker Hall, you would be on Mad TV right now, and that's important to mention because we've
I didn't
referenced
get
your
it.
Mad
I didn't
TV
get it.
reel a lot recently.
Yeah, I'm not in the new cast.
I'm
of
sorry,
Mad TV.
David. Yeah,
It's fine.
I
It's
saw
fine.
that.
It's fine. Let's move on. But have you seen Hard 8 recently? I watched Hard
No,
8. I watched Hard 8
I
a
still
couple
have
months
never
ago.
seen.
He's so fucking fucking good in it.
Yeah.
It's crazy how good he is in it. It's crazy. We shouldn't even talk about it. It's like saying the name of God.
Well, Midnight Run, if we ever get to
Oh, Breasty!
But you know his character in Heart 8 is his character from Midnight Run, right?
That's so right. Absolutely.
That Paul Thomas Anderson was obsessed with his
Midnight Run.
role in Midnight Run, which is also essentially 1 or 2 scenes.
That was the
And
Philip
like-
Baker Hall special.
He said, I want to know who that guy is,
Right.
and wrote a whole movie inspired by it, and the character has the same first name. It's kind of like the conversation Enemy of the State, where they're like not really sequels, but they both have the same character.
I mean, the conversation
Yeah.
Enemy of the State is less
Yes,
successful.
agreed.
So let's finish this up.
Yeah,
'cause
Philip Baker
we-
Hall's the best. He has the scene where he goes to the daughter, and she's like, can you explain to me what's going on? No one will tell me anything. Can you treat me like an adult?
Right.
And just be honest with me.
And he's like, your dad steals money. He bills these old people for phony shit. He has a lot of cash on hand. He probably buys a lot of stuff just to keep his money.
His
liquid.
customers die, and he acquires whatever.
Exactly.
And she goes like, "Stop fucking lying to me." And he's like, "I'm not lying. You just told me to tell the truth. I told the truth. You said he could take
She
it."
says you're trying to get me to confess, which is probably true. He's
Yeah.
probably trying it, but he's also being like,
I think it's
look,
also out of
we've been
empathy.
investing in your dad for years. This shit's probably on the level. And like I'm saying a lot of stuff that's classic for these kinds of cases. Have you noticed it? She goes to the house. And then we start to notice the house is full of stuff. He's bought her a
I didn't
car.
say that earlier. He gives her 2 gifts.
He's always giving her gifts.
They've got
Yeah.
a fucking jukebox.
Junks.
They've got a
The
jukebox.
sack comments on the jukebox.
I know,
there are a
$9
lot, there's
grand
a lot
that
of
jukebox
shit.
cost. And
He
then
keeps on buying gifts, and she goes, well, I don't need more gifts. And he goes, okay, one's from you as a dad, one's for you as a
my
friend.
best friend,
right?
yeah. And she finds the money in the antique drawers or whatever.
And I love that the title of the film refers to the relationship between her and her father, and
They
not
can
the
say anything
relationship
to each other.
because they say that 2 times. He goes, you know, you can say anything to me, and he says that before she tells him about sleeping with Lloyd. At a later point in the film, when she's trying to get him to confess, and she goes, "You told me that we could say anything to each other. You have to tell me," and he doesn't.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that like clicks in her brain, whereas like even though she knows her father's right, that she is someone with this ability and is destined for greatness and needs to stay on a straight path.
And I think she eventually figures out he did all this shit mostly out of concern for her, and he wants to just give her money.
Which is the tragedy of this character.
Right. I mean, and also he's a bad guy, but he's not like, he's not like a supervillain or whatever.
No.
He's more just like, bad guy.
Yeah, he's
And
back-
he's rationalized it to himself. He's like, whatever, they get a nice old people home out of me. Like, what do you care how much it costs?
Well, that's what's great is he doesn't back down on that scene. He
No.
says like, I didn't do anything wrong.
He doesn't really back down when he's in prison.
Yeah.
He knows he's fucked up, but he doesn't really admit the wrongdoing.
Oh, there's a great shot like halfway through the film that's just him in the bathtub, lying
That's
there.
devastating.
And the daughter knocks on the door and he
And
goes,
he's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm finishing up in here. Mahoney, man.
It's incredible. in this.
Owned it.
Owns it.
Just so we don't pass over it, there was one throwaway scene with the 2 accountants talking a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
No, it's the 2 lawyers.
Yeah, that was so weird.
Love that scene. Oh, that's
You
the
like
lawyers.
that?
Yeah, that's the lawyers negotiating his plea bargain.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I love about
Love that scene
Ben.
because that's how that shit works.
Yeah, and I like this more this time than the last 2 times. I like that it's so fucking banal because courtroom stuff in movies is usually so dramatic and so heightened. And you're just seeing 2 guys go like, "What about 9 months?" And he's like, "No, come on, dude, 12 months." And he's like, "Fine, 12 months, $200,000."
I've got it almost exactly. It's 40,000, no jail time. The guy's like, no way. And he's like, all right, 80,000. The guy's like, 120,000, 9 months.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, that's fine.
He goes like, "He stole from grandma and grandpa. Come on,
Right, yeah, right.
we're not gonna let him off that easy." But they like barely make eye contact with each other, and then they just shake hands and they go and they're like, "Work's done." Like these guys have 80 cases a day.
Yeah.
They don't have time to get all emotional about them.
Right.
It's not, you're out of order. This whole court's out of order.
Right.
It's like it just happens in a back room, and that's like the fucking deal. And Mahoney, when she confronts him about it, is like, "No, absolutely not." Like she gives him the final chance to own up to it, to own Mahoney.
Yeah.
And he
He
doesn't
won't
do
do
it.
it, yeah.
And she goes, "Dad, I found the money.
Yeah, right.
Like I found tons of bills in a box.
Yeah, but
Clearly, I know
he
what's
won't
going
do
on."
it.
And he immediately goes, "It's not what you think it is." And she goes, "What is it?" And rather than lie and say like that money was given to me by a drifter,
Sure, right.
he goes, "It's not what you think it is. I did it for you."
Right.
And she goes like, "I don't care who
Yeah,
you did it for." And he's
yeah.
like, "I need to do this." And he keeps on like getting defensive and going like, "I do so much for these people. I treat them better than their families do. What does it matter if I take their money?" And she's like, "They didn't allow you to they didn't agree to that." But he's so stubborn in a man who spent 10 years of his life. I mean, how long has it been since their parents divorced?
5 or 6 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And since then, he just is like, "It's entirely on me to carry this girl."
Yeah.
And it's clear from the way the scene with the mother, where all she does is comment on her mouth being weird and wanting her to be presentable in front of her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
The mom clearly doesn't see the same potential in her that the dad does.
Sure.
And
Yes.
he feels this responsibility single-handedly.
And he went too far. He
went too
wanted to
far.
like create a big safety net or I don't even know. The movie doesn't get into it. It doesn't matter because she's a teenager. Well, the thing is that a bad thing happens to her.
Yeah.
Which is what happens to teenagers.
But-
People think this plot, a lot of the big hit on this movie, I think, is that this plot comes out of nowhere. And that it's like so dramatic all of a sudden. That's what people's lives are like.
It worked
That's
so
really
well
my
for me.
argument. I really do feel like this is teenagers are just like, I like Lloyd. I like Lloyd. I'm blinkering my eyes and looking at Griffin around. I like Lloyd. I like Lloyd. And then suddenly it's like ripped out, they have to be ripped out of their teen tunnel vision. And it's like, dude, all this crazy stuff happens in the world.
Well, it's also like in all these teen films, the lead female character usually has so little fucking like internal life going on, right? For a film that starts with a guy being like, I have a crush on this girl, I want to ask her out.
Yeah.
And then Act 2, for whatever reason, they're going to split up because that's how these movies work. Until Act 3, they get back together, right?
Uh-huh.
And usually what splits them up is another guy, or just like, I'm getting scared, things are moving too fast.
Sure.
Or my least favorite, when a film is set up on a lie and she finds out the lie in the relationship
worst.
and I throw knives at the screen, right?
The worst.
I fucking vomit everywhere.
I mean, and that's not always so many teen movies, not even always romances. The whole premise is that there's some big lie that they start telling, and then they have to like elaborate on it because they get like caught in the and then like you're just like, we're gonna have the third act reveal.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like a total bummer, and then it has to be solved. Like it's the worst,
especially in
fucking
relationship movies. School of Rock, it works. I think any movie where it's a
Sometimes it
teacher
works.
lying about something, it works. Any movie where someone's lying to the other person, the couple, it's a nightmare.
Let's wrap it up. I want to play the box office game.
I've had in real life relationships that ended because of family stuff that was going on in my life. And the burden of that became so great that I was just
that's
like,
what
I
happens
just don't
sometimes.
fucking deal with this. And I love that the film starts with Lloyd and then kind of shifts over to her
Yep,
after
absolutely.
he dumps her and is like,
She
this is
dumps
what
him. She dumps
I'm
him.
sorry, yes. This is what she's going through, and you're able to track why she dumped him.
Yep.
Because she had all this shit to process.
Right, and then why she kind of wants to go back to him because she can't forget about him.
You
He's
don't see him
outside
for a
playing
long
with-
period of the film, and when
Nope.
you do, it's these little bits and pieces of just the phone calls,
He's
of the
bummed out.
boombox, of
Yep.
this and that. And, he goes to hang out with the guys,
Goes
and
to hang
they're
out with
like,
the guys.
just find a girl who looks exactly like her, fuck her, and then you'll be fine.
And he's like, why are you guys just hanging out alone on a Friday night just with each other and not with any women?
And like
they're-
some random 10-year-old.
and yeah, right. And they're just like, it's out of choice. And then I love the thing at the end of that conversation, Piven just goes like, I was in love once. That really sucked. Like when that ended, I don't want to go through that again. Like it's like this moment of honesty where they're like, I'm really scared of like letting my feelings get exposed. Ugh,
There's the
so
great
good.
Lauren Dean line, too, where he goes like, dude, I can hook you up with any girl in the universe. Who do you want? And he goes, okay, Diane Court.
And he's like, So the movie ends in a federal penitentiary. Classic.
She comes back to Cusack right after he's gotten his nose broken in a kickboxing room.
Sure.
She comes up to him and she's like, Lloyd, I need you.
Mhm.
And he's like, gotten over
He's
her.
like-
he's like put up the defensive wall of like, I'm not going to let myself
He
feel
needs
for
her
her
to say it
because.
3 times.
Right.
I like that.
But he says like, do you need me or do you need someone right now?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then he goes, you know what? I don't care. I don't care. And then just starts kissing her.
Right, because they love each other.
Yeah, and he makes her say it 3 times.
But then they go to a federal penitentiary.
Mhm.
They meet the dad. Only Lloyd talks to the dad for most of the scene. And Mahoney, his hair's gone gray.
Yeah.
Because obviously he was coloring his hair, and
Yeah.
like he's smoking.
He's chain smoking. He's miserable.
It
He's
sucks.
so fucking grumpy.
It's a little too on the nose, but it works. It just sucks.
It's also this
And
guy
he's good.
who just sort of charmed his way through life and
And
now
it's
is
yeah,
like,
fuck, it's ruined.
yeah.
And
Because
his daughter won't even talk to him,
he
which
did
is like the
nothing wrong.
most hard.
And he says that, why is she so angry at me about this? This had
Right.
nothing to do with her.
Right.
Like, he takes no
He
responsibility
doesn't get
for
that he did a bad
anything.
thing. That's why she's upset, because he
Right.
did an immoral thing, and she loves old people.
Right.
And he fucked over all these old people.
He feels
who
like
she
he's
loves.
getting blamed for someone else's problem,
And
which is the entire
I lo-
reason
I-
why he is in jail. Yeah.
I love that thing where he reads the letter from her, and Cusack's like, read to the end. No, I think there's a good part in there. She definitely wrote a version with a good part in there, and is not a good
He
part.
said, I don't know which version. No, this is the good one. It's the one that ends with "I'll always love you," and then
Right.
he looks over the page, and
it's
they don't
just
say
her-
anything.
Just her name.
Yeah, he looks at you, see the face drop, and he says like, Lloyd, what are you going to do? And he went, well, I thought about everything you said about Diane and how much she's destined for, and going to London would be a big burden for her. you know, and he goes, I'm very glad that, you know, you came to your senses. And,
Right.
and then I realized I don't care about any of that.
Right, and I just like to be with her, so I'm just going to go to London and be with her.
Yeah, you always
That's
ask me what I
we're
want
gonna
to do. To be honest, sir, I want to be with your daughter.
And by the way, we got to be done with talking about the plot of the movie.
yeah, because
But-
I got to see Finding Dory.
But I love that she's afraid of flying because I'm afraid of flying.
Oh,
I hate flying. I hate to
Yeah.
fly. It's my least favorite thing in the world. And I love that a movie ends with them in the plane as it's taking off, waiting for the seatbelt light to go off, which is how I feel when I'm in a plane. I'm just like, when
he
is
says
this nightmare
if something's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong in the first 5 minutes.
Sure.
When you hear the ding of the
You're
seatbelt,
basically fine.
you're
yeah.
basically fine, which is a perfect metaphor for the entire movie.
Right.
Which is like the rockiest part of any relationship is the beginning and the end.
Right, and they're holding each other's hands, and they're like just waiting and waiting, and then like ding, cut to black.
It's takeoff and
great.
landing. You want cruising altitude is what you want in a relationship.
Ding, cut to black.
Yeah, perfect. I couldn't remember when I was watching it if it cut to black right after the ding or before the ding.
Sure, it's right after.
Well, I know because now I've rewatched it. But I was sitting there and I was kind of like, I wanted the bleaker ending that was cutting before the ding and not being sure about the ding.
Yeah.
But then I realized, like, no, the whole movie was them taking off.
Yeah.
Give them the ding. They've earned the ding.
So this movie came out April 1989. A domestic gross total was $20 million. It basically made its budget back plus a little bit.
Mhm.
It opened to $4 million April 14th, weekend of April 14th, 1989. Can you guess what number one was? Let me tell you. This is a movie that anytime producer Ben watches it, cries.
1989, and Ben has told you that he cries every time he
Every
watches
time he
this
sees
film.
this movie.
Give me one more hint. How many weeks of release?
It's a baseball movie. It had come out the previous week.
Field of Dreams.
No, come on.
That would be an obvious answer. Think Ben Hosley.
Bull Durham.
No, also a good movie.
1989 baseball movie. It's not 8 Men Out because that was the year earlier.
Sure.
The Natural.
It's a comedy.
Fuck.
Dennis Haysbert is in
Oh,
this.
oh. And I know Ben has told me before that he cries every
I
time
know.
he watches
It was in a
film.
group text.
Major League. Ben cries every time he watches Major League.
Yeah, I don't know
Love
why.
it. I don't know why either, but it's just that last game gets me every time, man.
I cry in Major League 2 when he puts the Wild Thing glasses back on.
Back to the minors?
No, that's 3.
That's 3. Right, fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. Major League back to the minors.
Show
That's
some
3.
respect.
All right. Also in the top 10 that year, we're not going to play the game because we're
Yeah.
out of time, but The Dream Team with Michael Keaton.
Peter Boyle, Stephen First.
Correct.
Christopher Lloyd.
You've got She's Out of Control.
What film is She's Out of Control?
It's a movie with fucking Matthew Perry in it. I don't know. It's a Tony Danza movie. I have no
Jeez
idea what it is.
Louise.
Rain Man is in there, having made $152 million over the previous 18 weeks.
And it will then go on to win Best Picture that year.
It's going to win Best Picture in a couple weeks or
Yeah.
a few weeks.
Yeah.
You've got a movie called Disorganized Crime.
Great.
Looks like a mafia comedy. You've got Cyborg.
Jeez Louise. This is a
You got-
dire 10.
It really is. You got Dead Calm.
This is-
Decent thriller.
The Kidman Zane picture?
Yeah, got that right.
This is April?
This is April 89.
Okay.
You've got Fletch Lives.
Oh, boy.
oh, man.
Shout out to Fletch.
Yeah.
Which has collected $30 million in 5 weeks. Not great.
Yeah.
And you've got The Rescuers.
The original re-release?
Original re-released Rescuers.
Because probably Down Under was coming out the next year. They
It
want
was
to prime
coming
the
out
audience.
maybe at the end of the year. Maybe it's the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're getting the audience primed and buttered up.
Bill and Ted's still in there. Dangerous Liaisons. Twins. Heathers. These are at the back of the.
Can I ask a
back of the
serious
list.
question?
Twins made $106 million.
Huge. Is Bill and Ted the best comedy ever made?
I don't think so.
Because sometimes I do.
I haven't seen either Bill and Ted in a long time, but I haven't seen Bogus Journey in an age. And
One
I
of
would
the
like
best
to,
sequels.
I know. I would like to
Yeah.
see it again because I feel like a lot of it went over my head when I was like 11.
Yeah, rules. What's also like 50% a Seven Seal parody.
It's true.
That movie rules.
Can you unplug my computer over there?
Yeah, but guess what?
It's got motherfucking George Carlin in it, too.
Oh,
man.
wait,
Shit.
what?
We got a merchandise spotlight.
Oh,
Oh.
come on. We got to go.
Look at this.
Oh, gross. It's so weird.
Okay, I knew David was going to hate this.
It's a Lloyd Dobler toy, but his eyes are like bulging out in the wrong directions.
So Funko, the company that makes like all those pop figures, they have a line called Vinyl Idols that are like taller, sort of like vinyl statues.
Okay.
But they're done in this weird style that I guess is supposed to look kind of like a stop motion figure.
I don't like that at all. Don't you think it looks weird?
Yeah, I mean,
It
I
looks
wait,
like Daniel Radcliffe's character in Swiss Army Man, which has probably come out by the time this movie.
but the
this
likeness
podcast
isn't
is-
bad. I mean, they got kind of the mouth. The eyes, he's kind of
But, like,
wall-eyed.
this is fine,
He's got
but
very wide-set eyes.
You
the
know
pupils
what?
are going
No one
opposite
can see this,
directions.
and no one will ever see it. So let's
People
not
will
talk
see
about
it. But it's Cusack holding the boombox. It's a non-articulated plastic statue of Cusack holding a boombox. If you want one for $20, you can put it on a shelf. That's the only toy ever made of a Cameron Crowe film.
Cool. I bought the Armageddon Blu-ray Criterion DVD today.
Oh wow!
Because someone posted a clip on Twitter of Ben Affleck's audio commentary on that DVD,
Yeah.
and it's just him talking about Michael Bay, where he was like, "Michael, I said to Michael, like, why do they have to train us to be astronauts when they could just train the astronauts to be drillers, which seems easier?" And Michael was like, "Ben, shut the fuck up." And so I guess that was the end of that conversation. It's really funny, and I just want to listen to this whole thing and see what other gems of wisdom Ben Affleck has.
Well, maybe let me borrow that after you're done
I
with
will.
that.
And
Yeah.
like, there's a later part where he's like, I just think this is a real leap of logic. It's like, how hard is it to operate a drill? Point it at the ground, turn it on. It's so funny.
Because, Disney licensed all the Criterion special features, including the commentary for their Blu-ray of The Rock.
But not Armageddon.
Didn't do it for Armageddon, which is so fucking annoying.
Well, that's true. I had to buy the DVD, which is,
Yeah.
I don't like buying DVDs because I love a crisp Blu-ray.
Me
But
too.
So anyway, I did that. Anyway, so that's our Say Anything episode. Next week we're gonna do singles.
I just want to throw one thing out there. I think interesting. There's one lone credited producer on this film. Most movies have like 20,000 producers.
It's a lady. I
Her
forget
name's
her name.
Polly Platt.
Mhm.
She was the production designer and wife of Peter Bogdanovich
Okay.
on his first couple films.
Sure.
Last Picture Show, Targets,
Mhm.
whatchamacallit, Paper Moon,
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
Up Doc, the ones that rule.
Yeah, the great ones. Yeah.
He leaves his wife for Sybil Shepherd.
Sybil Shepherd.
Makes
yeah.
a bunch of Sybil Shepherd vehicles that are
Okay.
disintegrating
Okay to
quality,
bad, yeah.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
And Polly Platt, as his career kind of very quickly plummeted, there's a legacy, this sort of Marshall Lucas thing of like, Polly Platt might have been the necessary other half to him.
ingredient, to the whole production. Okay.
And she, I believe, produces Terms of Endearment, James L. Brooks' first movie.
No, yeah.
And then some years later, after now he's a kind of storied
big
filmmaker,
deal,
and
yeah.
he brings Cameron Crowe. She produces Say Anything, and then years later also produces Bottle Rocket.
So there you go. So you're saying she's a secret ingredient.
3 of those 4 filmmakers are dudes who really lost the plot later on.
Yeah.
And she produced their first movie, which is the one that crystallized the
Okay.
thing.
All right. That's an interesting
I think
point.
she's an interesting figure to throw out there.
All right.
And I think, there's
that's the
a good,
kind of insight you get on Blank Check with Griffin and David. We podcast.
we podcast. And,
We haven't talked enough about that name. We'll talk about it next week. We got to go.
We did a poll and it got 47% of the votes.
And I knew it would the second I saw it as an option. You didn't tell me because you thought I would hate it. I always would have loved it. I really want to object to that.
I want to let the people choose.
But
Polly Platt's an interesting
that's
figure.
rude. That's rude.
She'll probably be covered in other miniseries, and we'll
Sure,
talk about her more.
possible.
She's an interesting figure in American filmmaking, and she died about 7 years ago, which is sad. But she's
People
gotten
die.
creating. That sucks.
I know. Yes, it does. It does. But we do have to wrap.
Rate,
Should
review,
we talk about
subscribe.
death, though?
No.
Next
you gotta
episode.
Go.
Next
You gotta
episode's
go.
a death bonus, and we'll also talk about the film Singles.
Singles, which I've never seen.
I've seen now. I used to own it on DVD. I don't know why. That was the period of time where if I saw a movie on
Bought
TV and I gave it a 6, I would then buy it at Best Buy.
Singles, Matt Dillon and Kira Sedgwick and Campbell Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, rock radio.
Only credit acting appearance by Tim Burton.
Weird.
Yeah, get
All
ready.
right.
It's a weird movie.
Okay, this was fun. This was good. I love this movie. I'm glad we talked about
Me
it.
too. We podcast, and we're going to continue potting cast for you folks. We're the 2 friends. Thanks for listening. Rate, review, subscribe, email us, tweet at us. We won't respond, but we'll notice.
And as always,
And as always, in your
Eyes.
gotta pee.
The light, the heat in your eyes.
David, come on.
I am complete in your eyes. I see the doorway to 1,000 churches in your eyes. The resolution of all the fruitless searches in your eyes.
In
Your eyes.
Your eyes. Your eyes.
In
Your eyes. Can't believe David's missing out on this.
Damn,
We're having a great time.
sweet vocals.
This has been a UCB comedy production. Check out our other shows on the UCB Comedy Podcast Network.